Chapter 1102. On the heavenly word peak, under the apricot tree, a young girl was unconscious and covered in blood. The void rippled and a white streak of light appeared. Arriving under the apricot tree in a single step, Mu Qingshua's body shook when he saw the young girl's blood-stained clothes. Mu Qingxue stepped forward to help the unconscious girl up. He condensed his true essence and poured it into her body. In an instant, demonic qi surged out from Yiner's heart, sealing her vital meridians and cutting off her vitality. Mu Qingshue's face turned grave as he struggled to move his origin energy. Panic flashed through his usually calm eyes. He could feel that Yiner's vitality was fading and she could only hold on for 10 days at most. Behind him, a streak of light arrived and a figure in a silver-gray cloak walked out. Looking at the scene in front of him, his expression turned solemn. The worst-case scenario still happened. That Jiming Marquis had spent his entire life protecting these precious people, but he couldn't keep them. In the end, he couldn't keep them. This girl couldn't hold on for more than a few days. Sensing the person behind him, Mu Qingxue got up and turned around to look at the former. Housemaster, can you see who did this? Scaled race Di Mingtian. The Dawn Moon Housemaster said calmly. The remnant demonic qi here was clearly detectable. It was easy to find the culprit. Mu Qingxue nodded and did not say anything. He picked up the girl under the apricot tree and was about to leave. Where are you going? The Dawn Moon Housemaster asked. To find Ningchen and take revenge. Mu Qingxue said coldly. The Dawn Moon Housemaster's expression turned solemn. The Jiming Marquis left a phoenix body in the Reverence Moon Holy Ground. You can go there to find him. Many thanks. Mu Qingxue replied calmly. His figure flickered as he left the heavenly word peak. The Dawn Moon Housemaster looked at the withered apricot tree and sighed inwardly. Di Mingtian left Yiner alive. His thoughts were deep. If he wanted to save her, he would have to pay with his life. He couldn't say these words. This world needed the Jiming Marquis more. Although Tianyu was strong, he needed time to grow. The current human race couldn't wait any longer. At the border between the All-Heaven Starfield and the Luojia Starfield, the Reverence Moon Ancient Ground, the sacred ground of the Reverence Moon clan. Tens of thousands of Reverence Moon clan members were kneeling before an altar. On the altar, a red-clothed figure stood before a stone statue, praying for the entire Reverence Moon clan. With the moonlight, the clear saint force became stronger and stronger. The phoenix was noble and pure, untainted by the mortal world. Right at this time, in front of the Reverence Moon Ancient Ground, a white-clad figure appeared in the starry space. Her peerlessly beautiful face now had a hint of a mundane aura. Mu Qingxue did not hesitate. He waved his hand and the Chungying sword appeared. With a swing of his sword, a formless wheel of swords appeared behind him. In an instant, the wheel of swords turned into boundless swords that pierced through the air. In the next moment, there was a violent tremor as the sword light collided with the divine restriction. Layers of sword qi dispersed and were blocked by the divine restriction. Inside the Reverence Moon Ancient Ground, the Reverence Moon clansmen sensed something, and their faces were filled with shock. Don't panic. It's not an enemy. On the altar, Ningchen spoke softly. His gaze was fixed on the sky, and in a flicker he flew out. The phoenix spread its wings and soared into the 9 heavens. In the blink of an eye, the phoenix reappeared at the Reverence Moon Ancient Ground. The red-clad figure walked out and looked at the newcomer. Just as he was about to say something, his expression changed. I'm sorry, I didn't take good care of her. Mu Qingxue spoke, and his eyes dimmed with guilt. It's not your fault. The phoenix body stepped forward and took the unconscious Yiner into his arms. Sensing the rapidly dissipating vitality in the young girl's body, the phoenix body turned and walked towards the Reverence Moon Ancient Ground. On the altar, the phoenix body placed the young girl in front of the moon god's stone statue and knelt down silently. At this moment, high in the 9 heavens, clouds began to gather. The moon god's stone statue shone brightly, and an aura that transcended the mortal world emerged. The moon god had descended and reappeared in the mortal world. The beautiful figure in the void was pure and holy. Moonlight swirled around her body, obscuring her true appearance. When the moon god appeared, the Reverence Moon clansmen prostrated themselves in front of the altar and saluted respectfully. Moon god. The phoenix body lowered its head and said, "Young man, in this world no one is qualified to receive your worship. The same goes for the gods." The moon god spoke softly. "Moon god, please save Einer's life." The phoenix body's eyes sank as it pleaded, "I can't save her." In the void, the moon god sighed softly and said, "Even if the gods come to the mortal world, they can't change the rules of heaven and earth." Hearing this, the phoenix body trembled once again. The suppressed sorrow rushed to its heart, and it said softly, "I'm willing to use 1,000 years of my life in exchange for 100 years of her health." Above the altar, the moon god fell silent. After a while she said, "The demonic chi in her body has locked all her meridians. The person who performed the technique did it on purpose. If you want to save her, you will exhaust all your strength. Moreover, during this process, it's impossible for her body to remain unaffected. Even if she survives, there will be irresolvable side effects in the future. I want her alive." The phoenix body raised its head and looked at the god in the void, and said without any hesitation. The moon god sighed again, and did not try to persuade the phoenix body anymore. She nodded and said, "As you wish." With that said, the moon god raised her hand. Specks of light fell from the sky and entered the young girl's body. "I will do my best to protect her heart. As for the demonic chi in her body, only you can remove it." "Many thanks." The phoenix body responded. Its phoenix essence burned rapidly, and its supreme saint force turned into a sky-scorching power that swallowed the entire altar. On the Reverence Moon Holy Grounds altar, divine flames rose and a phoenix rose from the ashes. The phoenix body's saint force dispersed, expelling the demonic chi from the young girl's body. In the void, as the moon god's energy was depleted, the moon god's body became more illusory. A few breaths later, it disappeared completely. In front of the altar, millions of Reverence Moon Holy Grounds clansmen watched the scene in front of them with uncontrollable sorrow. High Priestess. In front of millions of Reverence Moon Holy Grounds clansmen, a white-haired old woman said with a sorrowful expression, "Don't grieve for me. The phoenix is immortal and indestructible. There will be a day when I return and lead all of you forward." As her words fell, the divine flames above the altar dissipated, and Hong Yi's figure disappeared. No one could sense her aura anymore. In front of the moon god's statue, the demonic chi in the young girl's body was completely erased, and her vitality finally stopped dissipating. Not far away, Mu Qingxue, who had witnessed this scene with his own eyes, turned and left without saying a word. This enmity would not rest until one of them was dead. In front of the Ziwei galaxy, Di Mingtian's figure appeared. After completing his mission, he walked towards the scaled race's territory in the distance. In the distance, a streak of white light sped past, faster and faster. Behind it, the starlight flickered, and in the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. The desolate city's daughter came with murderous intent. The desolate city's daughter, who had hidden her sharpness for the past 100 years, had once again revealed her peerless sharpness. She had once suppressed all the geniuses in the inner world, and was the first to step into the Xiantian realm. In the Ziwei galaxy, Di Mingtian was less than 100,000 li away from the scaled race's territory. At this moment, an extremely fast streak of white light shot through the air, traversing time and space, forcefully blocking the path of the royal bloodline of the scaled clan. Di Mingtian sensed it and stopped in his tracks. He looked at the person in front of him and asked solemnly, "Who are you?" "Mu Qingxue." As he spoke, a beautiful woman in white appeared. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent, and she said coldly, "On the heavenly word peak, the girl you injured called me mistress." Chapter 1103. In the Ziwei galaxy, the lady of the desolate city crossed 2 galaxies, and came to kill the royal bloodline of the scaled tribe. The lady of the desolate city, who wanted to return to the mortal world for 100 years, used the Taishang unruffled emotion and forbidden energy. "Today you will die." The declaration of death was bone-chilling. Mu Qingxue clenched his fist, and a divine weapon as thin as a cicada's wing appeared. It was the famous sword of the desolate city, the Chengying sword. Feeling the anger in its master's heart, the Chengying sword kept humming. The visible sword gradually turned invisible, making it difficult to see clearly. Taking a step forward, Mu Qingshua's body was like a bolt of white lightning in the starry sky. Holding his sword, he started his killing spree. The endless flames of war burned the world. Facing the sudden killing intent, Di Mingtian did not dare to be careless. He raised his hands and the demonic qi around him rose. The dark energy turned into a protective barrier in front of him. The Chengying sword passed by, and the Taishang forbidden energy was activated. The invisible sword light hit the demonic qi barrier. A violent collision sounded. The sword light shook the demonic qi. At the moment of stalemate, Mu Qingxue pointed at the sword, and the Chengying sword spun rapidly. With a clang, the Chengying sword broke the barrier and stabbed at Di Mingtian's heart. However, a strange light rose. The scaled tribe's armor protected the vital parts and the divine weapon could not penetrate. It's hard to take revenge. With a sneer, Di Mingtian gathered his primordial energy into his palm and counterattacked. Mu Qingshue's body was pushed back a dozen steps. His cold eyes stared at the strange light on Mu Qingshue's chest. I killed one of his disciples and now a woman comes. The ninth son of the Mahis sect, how dare he not come? Di Mingtian waved his right hand, and an ancient divine weapon appeared in the dark energy. The sun and moon shone brightly in the sky. It was the divine weapon of the sword pavilion, the sun and moon saber. It was the divine weapon of the divine weapons. You are not qualified to make him fight. Mu Qingxue wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and rushed forward again. In an instant, the tip of the sword pierced through the air. The extremely fast sword broke through the demonic qi and landed on Di Mingtian's chest once again. A strange light rose and the result was the same. The scaled tribe's armor blocked the sword light. It was an absolute defense. A futile struggle. Di Mingtian snorted coldly. The divine weapon in his hand slashed down. As the sun and moon flickered, the starry sky was split apart. The peerless sharpness shook the heavens and the earth. Since he was already prepared, Mu Qingxue didn't make the same mistake as before. With a stomp of his foot, his silhouette instantly disappeared, and he reappeared in the world with extreme speed. Fast, so fast that it was hard for his divine senses to distinguish. When he regained his senses, the sky was filled with white-robed figures. Streaks and streaks of sword gleams slashed towards Di Mingtian's chest. Your speed isn't bad. Unfortunately, that's all you can do. Di Mingtian raised his hand to wipe off the blood on the corner of his mouth as he looked at the incoming sword light. He yelled deeply, and the chaotic dark power started to rise as his half-step king warrior cultivation exploded. Di Mingtian's demonic essence spread out from his body and engulfed the sword radiance with his dark force. Everything within a 10,000-mile radius turned into darkness. In the starry sky, Mu Qingshue's silhouette seemed to have sunk into a swamp. His advantage in speed was greatly restricted. The sky full of afterimages disappeared, and the real body appeared. Di Mingtian seized the opportunity and leaped forward, slashing down mercilessly with his sword. The two swords clashed and sparks burst out. The white-robed figure flew out and smashed towards the distant planet. Dust and sand filled the skies. On this primitive great star that was dried up of life, a beautiful white-clothed figure fell down, smashing open a 1,000-foot-deep crater. Di Mingtian's silhouette slowly descended from the sky. Looking at the crater covered by dust, he didn't dare to be careless. However, right at this moment, a dazzling white sword gleam appeared in the sky. The next moment, the white-robed figure soared into the sky. Behind her, huge sword wings flapped, splitting apart the darkness as she increased her speed. Before anyone could react, the white-robed figure flashed past. Her speed was so fast that even the heavens and earth couldn't withstand it. Wherever the white-robed figure passed, the space shattered. With a boom, the sword edge shook the divine armor. Di Mingtian let out a muffled groan as his silhouette flew out. After gaining the upper hand in one move, Mu Qingshue's silhouette flashed out again. The Chengying sword spun rapidly, and the Supreme Forbidden Origin was activated. The Forbidden Origin surged, and Mu Qingshue's cultivation rose rapidly. In the mortal world, they forgot about each other. 7 Ultimate Arts, beginning of reincarnation. With the Forbidden Origin, Mu Qingshue's left palm activated the power of reincarnation. With a thunderous roar, he slammed his palm on the former's chest. Another heavy blow landed on the same spot. With a boom, Dimingtian's mouth was filled with blood, and the remaining force penetrated his body, severely injuring the demon. The silver-robed figure crashed onto the planet, and the ground collapsed. Huge cracks spread across the planet. The sky was filled with dust again. Mu Qingxue didn't hesitate and charged into it. After a while, the ground shook. Heaven and earth moved at extreme speed, and the absolute defense. The two geniuses of the age faced each other, and they wouldn't stop until one of them was dead. The primitive great star seemed to have met with an apocalypse, gradually falling apart in the fierce battle between the two. The entire great star began to crumble, and huge rocks were sent flying into the distance. In front of Dimingtian's chest, the scaled race's armor blocked most of the attacks. Even though he was hit repeatedly, he was still able to maintain his peak strength. On the other hand, the Lady of Desolate City was trapped in the dark force field, and her forbidden origin was rapidly depleting. She couldn't maintain her peak state for long. I told you this is all you can do. Dimingtian snorted coldly. He suppressed his injuries with his demonic qi and attacked with his divine weapon. As the two swords clashed, the divine weapon's power became more and more shocking. The Chungying sword couldn't block it, and tiny cracks appeared on the thin sword. Not good. Seeing this, Mu Qingshue's expression turned serious. He used the forbidden origin to protect his sword, and pointed with his left hand. 7 ultimate arts, 9 void wave-breaking finger. As he pointed out with his finger, endless forbidden energy gathered. In an instant, the power of his finger shook the divine armor. Boom. Again and again, the scales on Dimingtian's chest began to crack as well. Even the absolute defense could not withstand the continuous attacks. Dimingtian's expression changed slightly as his armor was damaged. He endured the pain in his chest and gathered his demonic qi to counterattack. The dark force field surged out. Mu Qingxue retreated quickly, avoiding the palm energy. He stepped in the air 100 feet away and turned back again. The Chungying sword flew out, shining brightly. A white light pierced through the sky and pierced toward the cracks on Dimingtian's armor. Naive. Dimingtian was furious after being injured again and again. He used his absolute defense to forcefully grab the sword edge. In the next moment, the sound of the sword edge rubbing against the armor sounded. It was so ear-piercing that it made people shudder. Back off! With a roar, Dimingtian's demonic qi burst out. He clenched his left hand that was holding the Chungying sword. The cracked divine weapon finally couldn't withstand it anymore, and shattered into pieces. The dark force field hit Mu Qingxue again, and sent him flying a few hundred feet away. In the endless battle until now, both of them were seriously injured. Blood covered their bodies, but it couldn't hide their killing intent. The Chungying sword shattered, and the battle turned around. Dimingtian's figure flashed past, using his absolute defense and the power of the divine weapon to attack again. Cold blade closed in, and every move was fatal. Mu Qingxue turned around and moved into the sword light. You still have some strength after losing your sword. Dimingtian mocked coldly. His dark force and cold blade blocked the girl's path of retreat, showing no mercy. Unruffled emotions, witnessed by the heavens. Witnessed by the heavens, unruffled emotions. Mu Qingshue's forbidden origin was activated, and his memory was lost at an accelerated rate. His body was many times stronger than before, and it pierced through the sky and shook the sun and moon. The white-robed figure flashed past quickly, and not a trace of him could be seen. Amidst an earth-shattering sword hum, a red wooden box appeared in the void. The great green sparrow sword broke through the void, and it reappeared after 100 years. Holding the great green sparrow sword, Mu Qingshue's figure flashed in front of Dimingtian. Forbidden origin circled around the ordinary sword, and the sword pierced through the body. As the sword entered the body, the forbidden origin exploded, instantly destroying the cultivator's meridians. Dimingtian groaned, and he retreated again and again. Blood spurted from his chest, dyeing his divine robes red. His meridians were destroyed, and his life was in danger. However, Dimingtian's eyes were filled with a strong desire to live, and he countered with a palm strike on the former's chest. Retreat. Not daring to fight anymore, Dimingtian took the opportunity to retreat, and quickly flew toward the scaled race's territory. As long as he returned to the scaled race, he would be safe. With the dragon transformation pool, his injuries would recover quickly. The loss of life was so clear that Di Mingtian's consciousness gradually became hazy. For the first time, he felt fear in his heart. Behind him, the heavily injured Mu Qingxue stabilized himself and spat out a mouthful of blood. He did not have time to suppress his injuries and quickly chased after Di Mingtian. 10,000 miles away, the white flowing light broke through the sky and blocked the front again. A distance of 90,000 miles was nothing to a half-step king. However, at this moment, it was like the end of the world, unreachable. Father, save me. With death blocking his way, Di Mingtian's eyes were filled with despair. He looked into the distant sky and used the last of his strength to shout. The desperate roar shook the starry sky. In the distant scaled race's territory, the scaled king seemed to have sensed something, and his eyes suddenly opened. In an instant, the king rushed out of the abyss and flew into the distance. Father! In the starry sky, Di Mingtian saw the demonic clouds in the distance, and his face was filled with joy. Hope reignited in his eyes. No one can change your defeat today. With his back facing the demonic clouds, he could still feel the powerful demonic power. However, even a king could not instantly reach the distance of 90,000 miles. With one step, Mu Qingxue arrived in front of Di Mingtian. He burned his restriction yuan to the limit and sent out a palm strike with full force toward the former's chest. The sound of the strike echoed through the starry sky. Endless restriction yuan entered the body, instantly destroying the martial artist's bones. Blood spurted out, and the demonic cultivator's eyes turned misty. The silver-clothed figure flew out and crashed into the distant withered star. The flame of life in Di Mingtian's body gradually disappeared. In front of his chest, a pool of blood spread out, dyeing the silent withered star red. He had been good at scheming all his life, brave all his life, but in the end, it was all for naught. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. His powerless eyes gradually closed. The last thing he saw was the white-clothed woman standing in the starry sky. She was so beautiful, but the death god took his life without mercy. Chapter 1104. In a dilapidated temple in the primordial demon realm, a bonfire danced. A plain-clothed figure stood in front, looking at the heavy rain outside the temple. The aura of the phoenix body had disappeared. Separated by a realm, he could not know what had happened in the sky beyond heaven. However, there was no doubt that something had happened there. The three bodies were of one mind, and they were bound together for good or ill. He was still alive, which meant that the phoenix body had not fallen but had undergone nirvana. That ominous premonition from before might be the reason for the phoenix body's nirvana. Not far away, the little girl held some dry food in her dirty hands and gnawed on it. In order to survive, she did not dare to waste any dry food even though it was hard to swallow. Bang! At this moment, the door of the dilapidated temple was kicked open. Two burly men came in and shouted when they saw the little girl in the dilapidated temple. They are here. Behind them, three companions walked in. Their clothes were soaked by the rain and stuck to their bodies, making them look a little embarrassed. Kill them. One of the burly men said coldly. Yes. The three men walked into the temple, ready to eliminate the source of the problem. Seeing this, the little girl was terrified. She immediately ran behind the plain-clothed young man beside the bonfire and hid. The two burly men also walked into the dilapidated temple. When they saw the young man in front of the little girl, they frowned unconsciously. Although this person had not made a move, their instincts told them that this person was not to be trifled with. Brother, please do us a favor. One of the burly men said seriously. Ning Chen recovered from his thoughts and looked at the five people who walked into the temple. There was no change in his calm eyes. The noise in the temple woke up the unconscious woman not far away. Her ferocious face and a pair of cold eyes opened. When she saw the five people, she immediately sat up. Second mother. Seeing the woman wake up, the little girl immediately ran forward and said in surprise, "Cuckoo." The woman pulled the little girl behind her and looked at the five people in front of her vigilantly. At this moment, she was like a mother beast protecting her young, unusually fierce. With a life and death crisis in front of her, there was no way out. The woman's gaze once again fell on the white-haired young man. With a pleading expression she said, "Sir, Ku is still young. Please save her life." Ningchen quietly watched the scene before him, and sighed in his heart. His eyes were strangely calm. The strong preyed on the weak. In his life, he had seen far too much. He had once tried his best to save them, but he had been powerless to stop them. Perhaps if he saved the mother and daughter today, in the future, the mother and daughter would turn into the coldest demons to these men, who would crazily seek revenge. However, if he did not save them today, the woman and the little girl would undoubtedly become ghosts under his blade. There was no way for them to survive. To save or not to save, it was a simple decision, but it was difficult to make. "Sir, please do me a favor." The burly man who spoke earlier opened his mouth again and said politely. Ningchen shifted his gaze and looked at the 5 people in front of him. He said calmly, "You can't even spare the child's life? If you don't remove the roots when you cut the weeds, they'll grow again when the spring breeze blows. Mister, our 2 races have been enemies for generations. If you leave even one alive, it could be a disaster for our race in the future." Speaking up to hear, the burly man paused and looked at the woman not far away. He said with a cold expression, "Mister, you only saw their pitiful side today. You didn't see the cruelty of their race when they wantonly slaughtered our race. At that time they didn't show any mercy to our race." Hearing the burly man's words, the woman clenched her fists. She did not deny it. Her ferocious face became more alert as she prepared to rush out of the encirclement at any time. Ningchen clenched his right hand. It was so quiet that there was no movement of qi. However, the space around the woman suddenly twisted. In the next moment, blood poured out like a waterfall, filling the sky. Her destroyed qi swept out like raging waves. Her cultivation scattered between heaven and earth. Her martial bones were destroyed and there was no way for her to recover. Ugh! The woman let out a mournful groan. She knelt down with a thud and cold sweat flowed down her back. Inside the dilapidated hall, everyone was shocked when they saw the shocking scene. What just happened? Why didn't they feel the slightest movement of qi? Her cultivation has been lost and her martial bones are destroyed. She can no longer be a threat to you. Can you spare them? Ningchen looked at the 5 people and said calmly. The 2 burly men recovered from their shock. They looked at the white-haired young man in front of them with fear and bowed respectfully. "Venerable, we have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. If we offended you before, please forgive us. You are just protecting your own people. There is nothing wrong with that." Ningchen said indifferently. He looked at the woman and the little girl and said, "That child has practically no cultivation at all. If you're afraid of her even when she's like this, then the reputation of an expert is undeserved." The 2 burly men looked at each other and bowed again. They said respectfully, "Thank you, Venerable. We will take our leave." After they finished speaking, the 2 turned around and left with their 3 companions. In the ruined palace, blood dripped from the woman's body and dyed the ground red. The pain of having her cultivation destroyed was unbearable. After the 5 people left, the woman collapsed on the ground powerlessly. Her tense will relaxed, and she immediately fainted again. "Second mother." The little girl's expression changed and she exclaimed. Ningchen walked up and pointed at the woman's dantian to stop the bleeding. He looked at the little girl and said calmly, "Her injuries are not light. If she can't find a doctor to treat her, she won't last more than a few days." Hearing this, Ko was anxious. She looked at the pouring rain outside and didn't know what to do. "This rain will stop in a few days. However, your second mother won't last until then," Ningchen said honestly. Ko gritted her teeth and ran out without hesitation. In the heavy rain, the little figure disappeared. It was so weak that it seemed like it would be swallowed by the mortal world at any time. Why didn't the immortal save them? At this time, the space on Ningchen's shoulder twisted and the little gourd appeared. "She can find a doctor, and this woman will be saved. It is such a simple thing. Why do you need someone else's help?" Ningchen said calmly. "It is not simple at all." The little gourd murmured softly. That little girl was only about the size of a 6 or 7-year-old human child. How could a child of such a size find a doctor when she was penniless? This is her fate. Ningchen said calmly, If you can't do it, then you have to bear the consequences. If I save them today, who will save them in the future? The little gourd didn't dare to say anything more. It hid in the God-forbidden seed and disappeared. Ningchen looked at the unconscious woman not far away and ignored it. He sat down in front of the bonfire again and waited quietly. There was still no movement from the sealed cultivation. The immortal gate's suppression was unbreakable. Tap tap. Right at this moment, numerous black-clothed figures flashed past outside the ruined temple. They were high up in the air, and their footsteps caused beautiful splashes to appear as they stepped on the rainwater. Again. Inside the ruined temple, Ningchen felt something. He looked outside the temple and coldness flashed in his eyes. He couldn't remember how many waves of pursuers it was. It seemed like even if he left the primordial demon region, there were still people who wouldn't give up. Ningchen walked out of the hall and pointed his right hand. The rain gathered and streaks of water swords flew out of the ruined temple. Several groans were heard. The water swords pierced through their bodies and brought out a waterfall of blood. Even if they had lost their cultivation, a swordsman who had just entered the extreme realm was not to be bullied. Great Sword Realm. With a soft voice, the watery light spread. The extreme realm of Sword Realm was opened. In the Sword Realm, a white-haired figure in plain clothes stood in the air. He looked at the black figures in front of him calmly and said, "You've been chasing for so long. Take a rest." As soon as he said that, the watery light swallowed everyone in the Sword Realm. Silently, hundreds of demon assassins disappeared. The battle ended in the blink of an eye. The world returned to normal. The heavy rain washed away the spilled blood and covered the evil of the massacre. Ningchen turned and walked into the hall in the ruined temple. He continued to wait patiently. "If you encounter any pursuers again, I can help you." Demon chi surged. The demon walked out and said in a deep voice. Ningchen shook his head and said, "No. I sealed your aura with the divine seal to hide from the celestial sect. If you help, your identity will be exposed. Then you will be suppressed. Saints and demons counter each other. The celestial sect's threat to you is far greater than mine." The demon's eyes darkened. The people from the primordial demon region will become stronger and stronger. Now that you have lost your cultivation, how are you going to deal with people like Xianzhan? "Don't worry," Ningchen said calmly. Ningchen said calmly, "Even the Celestial Devil clan can't casually dispatch experts at the peak of the King Realm. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy to deal with these few pursuits. Now the news of my complete loss of cultivation should have spread throughout the 3 imperial cities. This is a good thing for us. At least, we have a lot of time to prepare before the true experts arrive." The demon's eyes narrowed. He looked at the woman not far away and said indifferently, "There's no need to care about this." "It's nothing," Ningchen said calmly. Ningchen calmly said, "Who knows if today's cause will bear tomorrow's fruit? When did you start to believe in cause and effect?" The demon sneered. "I don't know." Ningchen shook his head and said, "I forgot. Maybe I'm just looking for a reason for my actions. Let's put this matter aside for now. The Phoenix Bodies incident means that the sky beyond heaven is no longer peaceful. We need to speed up here." "You're not looking for the 2-Fox princess anymore?" The demon was puzzled. "Yes," Ningchen said calmly. "However, we have other things to do while we leave." "What things?" The demon's eyes narrowed. "Do you remember what Fan Lingyue did back then?" Ningchen looked into the distance and said. Hearing this, the demon's expression changed slightly. "What do you want to do?" "Actually, the current situation in the primordial demon region is very similar to the divine prefecture back then. The heavenly demon clan is dominant and seems to be invincible, but in fact they are surrounded by enemies." At this point, a strange light flashed in Ningchen's eyes. He continued, "This time Fan Lingyue has already shown us what to do, hasn't he?" Chapter 1105. Primeval Demon Realm, Western Continent, in a ruined temple. After the battle, the heavy rain washed away all traces, leaving only the red ground as a record of what had happened. In the main hall, Ningchen, who had been waiting for half a day, threw the last piece of dry wood into the bonfire and stood up. He had done his duty. There was no need to wait any longer. Just as Ningchen was about to leave, outside the ruined temple, a wet little girl ran in with many herbs in her arms. The road was muddy. The little girl slipped and fell to the ground. The herbs spilled in the muddy water and were stained with mud. The little girl hurriedly got up, ignoring the wounds on her body. She carefully picked up all the herbs, wiped them with her clothes and hugged them in her arms. Then she continued to run towards the ruined temple. In the main hall of the ruined temple, Ningchen stood quietly in front of the hall. He sensed the little girl's breath and stopped. The child was back. With a creak, the wooden door of the ruined temple was pushed open. The little girl ran in with the herbs in her arms. Seeing the figure in front of the hall, her face lit up with joy. Ningchen looked at the little girl who had just returned and understood what had happened. "You didn't find a doctor?" Ningchen asked. "The rain is too heavy, the doctor won't come with me." Ko answered timidly. "Where did you get these herbs?" Ningchen asked again. "I exchanged them with something." Ko lowered her head and said with a gloomy face, "I didn't have any money, so I kept the jade pendant my mother left me." Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything more. "Sir, can you help me save second mother?" Ko handed over the herbs in her hands, her big eyes full of hope. Looking at the little girl's eyes full of hope and pleading, Ningchen nodded slightly and took the herbs. "Come in first." After that, Ningchen turned around and walked towards the bonfire that was still burning in the hall. Ko followed behind timidly, not daring to say anything. "Dry your clothes first," Ningchen said. He glanced around the hall and saw an abandoned incense burner on the incense table in front of him. He walked towards it. The incense burner was a bit shabby, but fortunately it was still intact. Ningchen walked out of the hall, poured the ashes out of the incense burner, washed it a few times, and then filled it with rainwater. In front of the bonfire, Ko was curled up and shivering. It was obvious that she had been drenched in the rain and was freezing. Ningchen placed the incense burner on top of the bonfire and placed a few medicinal herbs into it. Then he sat there quietly and waited patiently. Ko looked at the incense burner. She wanted to ask a few questions, but she didn't dare to open her mouth. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Her careful look made people feel sorry for her. Not long after, the choking smell of medicine wafted out from the main hall. It was a little pungent and mixed with a spicy smell. It was very unpleasant. After waiting for another quarter of an hour, Ningchen took down the medicinal herbs that had been boiled and placed them in front of the little girl. He said, "When it's slightly cooler, feed it to your second mother. After drinking it, your second mother should wake up very quickly." After he finished speaking, Ningchen stood up and walked out of the hall without staying any longer. When Ko saw him, she asked anxiously, "Sir, are you leaving?" Ningchen's footsteps paused. He looked back at the little girl and said calmly, "I still have things to do. When your second mother wakes up, you can leave. If fate wills it, we'll meet again in the future." After he finished speaking, Ningchen continued to walk out of the hall. He didn't stop. The pouring rain gradually engulfed Su Yi's figure. Not long after, he completely disappeared. Ko looked at the figure that disappeared in the rain. Her bright eyes flashed with tears. She firmly remembered the former's back view in her heart. "Immortal Elder, you have to compensate me." In the heavy rain, the little gourd appeared and said with dissatisfaction, "Saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. As a spiritual being of heaven and earth, how can you not have this awareness?" Ningchen stretched out his hand and lightly flicked the little gourd's head. "It hurts." The little gourd hugged its little head and pouted. That person's life was clearly not in danger. "Immortal Elder still wants to use my blood. It's too wasteful." Ningchen chuckled and said, "Because I'm in a hurry. I can't just leave halfway after saving someone." The little gourd continued to pout and said with dissatisfaction, "I don't care. Immortal Elder, you have to compensate me." Heh. Ningchen smiled faintly and said, "If I have the chance, I'll find you some heavenly treasures as compensation. Immortal Elder, you have to keep your word." Hearing this, the little gourd smiled happily and nodded vigorously. Then it hid itself in the divine restriction again. Ningchen shook his head helplessly. This little gourd was about to become a spiritual being. He just didn't know if this divine vine could grow into a divine being like the undying divine tree in the future. Just as knowing destiny was heading west, in the northern sorcerer tribe, a few emperors had been talking for several months on the huge altar. In the illusory space, the 5 emperors stood quietly and discussed how to deal with the future together. Go Huang, Scale Emperor, Stone Emperor, Holy Master of God's capital mountain, and the leader of Golden Lion tribe, the 5 supreme beings of heaven and earth all had solemn expressions on their faces. Over the past few months, news of what had happened in the primordial demon territory had been spreading, shocking the 5 of them. The Fox tribe was also destroyed. It was still done by the heavenly demons, Emperor Stone said in a low voice. The 13th prince of the heavenly demons was already prepared to marry the princess of the Fox tribe. I didn't expect that he still couldn't protect the Fox tribe. Holy leader of divine capital mountain said. The ambition of the 3 demon emperors of the heavenly demons is obvious. Now, only the demon emperor of Abyss has not made his stance clear. He has clashed with the 3 demon emperors more than once. Maybe we can break through from this demon emperor of Abyss. The leader of the Golden Lion tribe said seriously. It's difficult. Emperor Go shook his head lightly and said, the demon emperor of Abyss is from the heavenly demons after all. If the 3 demon emperors insist on starting a war, the demon emperor of Abyss will not be able to change their minds. The chance of success is too small. Emperor Go, do you have any other ideas? The leader of the Golden Lion tribe asked seriously. Maybe there's another person who's a better choice. Emperor Go said seriously. Do you remember which tribe the disciple of the demon emperor of Abyss is from? Hearing this, the 4 emperors' expressions turned serious. The 13th prince of the heavenly demons seemed to be from the human tribe. In the primordial demon realm, the human tribe is weak, especially the heavenly demons who hate the human tribe. Once the heavenly demons take control of the entire primordial demon realm, the human tribe will undoubtedly suffer the cruelest suppression. I've met the 13th prince a few times outside the Blood Moon ancient battlefield. He's a sentimental person, and he won't turn a blind eye to the future of the human tribe. Therefore, at this point, Emperor Go's tone changed as he continued. As long as we can convince the 13th prince to stand on the side of the human race or us, with how much the 9 Nether Devil Emperor values this disciple, even if he doesn't help, he will stay out of this matter and not help either side. After listening to Emperor Go's analysis, the 4 emperors looked at each other and nodded slightly. Judging from the demon emperor's attitude after the 13th prince took over the heavenly demon's imperial clan, it was possible. It's said that the 13th prince has left the primordial demon realm, and we don't know where he is now. Emperor Go, can you find out where he is? Emperor Scale asked. Emperor Go looked at the leader of the Golden Lion tribe and reminded him. Lion Emperor, if I'm not wrong, the 13th prince will visit soon. Oh. The leader of the Golden Lion tribe was surprised and said, he came to the west. Just as the 5 emperors were discussing, in the depths of the Z-Way galaxy in the sky beyond heaven, a powerful aura with endless anger rushed over. On the crumbling withered star, the Dark Emperor Heavenly Corpse's body shone brightly. The Scale King's soul suddenly opened its eyes. The silver-robed figure flew out quickly, his aura stronger than before. With a flip of his palm, a stormy wave cut through the starry sky. Mu Chengshua's expression turned serious as he stepped out to avoid the palm energy. It was a dangerous situation with the king's soul in front and the Scale King's body behind. The situation could not be delayed. 7 Ultimate Arts. Return to the desolate era. With the crisis unresolved, Mu Chengshua did not waste any more time. With a deep roar, he used the last of his strength. Instantly, a strange light shot into the sky as an unprecedented power gathered. The terrifying power broke through the restrictions of heaven and earth, and quickly disintegrated the starry sky. In front of him, the Dark Emperor Heavenly Corpse's power also rose rapidly. The Scale King's soul was trying to stop the former at all costs. In the next moment, the Indifference Grand Supreme and the Scale Race's power clashed. A shocking shockwave swept out, and wherever the shockwave passed, the stars turned into stardust and disappeared. Ark, blood splattered and dyed his white robe red. Mu Qingxue took half a step back and staggered to stabilize himself. In front of him, the Dark Emperor Heavenly Corpse's blood kept splattering. His divine robe was torn and almost completely destroyed. Behind him, the demonic cloud spread out, and a powerful palm energy broke through the sky and attacked the injured lady of Desolate City. Mu Qingxue turned around, and blood mist surrounded his hands as he used the Grand Supreme Forbidden Art. With a thump, his white robe flew out and was dyed red again under the king's heavy palm. In the starry sky, the Scale King stood in the rolling demonic cloud. He felt that his son's life force had completely disappeared, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. "You shall be buried with my son." With a furious roar, the Scale King's demonic aura shot into the sky, and his terrifying king's aura covered the starry sky. Mu Qingxue looked at the changes around him, and there was not much fear on his face. 7 Ultimate Arts, 100 Generations Final Chapter. The last chapter of the Grand Supreme Forbidden Chapter was a forbidden technique that was activated for the first time. Mu Qingxue's eyes shone with a strange light. Before the forbidden chapter of the forbidden chapter was activated, violent waves gathered and formed a brilliant scene of reincarnation. Just as the forbidden chapter was about to be activated, a blue sword light broke through the sky from afar. The purest sword aura instantly pierced through the darkness. Almost at the same time, in a faraway world, the earth fire spewed out. After the phoenix body's aura completely disappeared, the sky was filled with divine flames. The power of laws suppressing the vermilion bird dissipated, and the divine flames soared into the sky. From the earth fire, a red-robed figure walked out. The familiar face was like the moon in the water, and it was hard to tell if it was real or fake. The vermilion bird looked at the sky coldly, and a scarlet divine sword appeared in her right hand. With a slash, heaven and earth were split open. Chapter 1106. In the Ziwei Galaxy, the king-level warriors were pressing for his life. Mu Qingxue, who had just experienced a fierce battle, was already out of strength and had no strength to fight back. As the crisis approached, there was no time to hesitate. Mu Qingxue forcefully activated the Taishang Restriction Martial Art, Chaos Restriction Yuan, shaking the starry sky. The king raised his hand, and a completely different kind of destructive power exploded, crushing forward. The battle was in danger. At this critical moment, a blue sword light broke through the sky from afar. It was an outstanding sword aura, exquisite and pure, without any impurities. The sword light arrived, suppressing the enemy first. Before the Scaled King could release his palm, it was interrupted. With a rumble, the sword light shook the Scaled King's unending protection. In the intense vibration, the Scaled King took half a step back to dissipate the remaining power. In front of him, the clouds dispersed, and a familiar figure appeared. Her figure was exquisite, and her face was beautiful. Her eyes were clear like water, reflecting all the evils in the world. This was the first time they had met in 100 years. Mu Qingxue looked at the figure in front of him, and immediately guessed the identity of the person. It was the barbarian race's princess. "Ah man, be careful. Their scales are hard to deal with. It won't help if you fight for a long time," Mu Qingxue said with a serious expression. "Okay." Hearing the reminder, Ah man nodded lightly. She looked at the shining scales in front of her, and a strange light flashed in her clear eyes. "Another one to die with, my son. I'll fulfill your wish." The Scaled King could not hide his anger. He raised his hand, and a dark power surged, sweeping through the starry sky. When the king attacked, a man's figure moved as well. She avoided layers of dark power with each step. The sword of Initial Heart bloomed as if it had a mind of its own. It found the weakest point of the monster energy and cut through the obstacles, reaching the king. With a clang, the sword tip and the scale armor clashed. The sword of Initial Heart pierced through the gap between the two scales. The sword technique was so precise that there was no mistake at all. Wherever the will was, the sword would be there. An ear-piercing sound of friction was heard. The sword of Initial Heart pierced through 3 inches, and the sword momentum gradually stopped. The Scaled King's expression sank, and he turned his palm to attack Aman's chest. When the palm energy arrived, Aman's body moved and dodged the palm energy. She took a step forward and her body turned back once more. She pointed her finger, and the sword of initial heart penetrated another 3 inches. The scale armor blocked the sword tip, but it could not block the remaining power of the sword. The sword chi vibrated, and the scaled king took another step back. He was furious, and the hidden power around him exploded. With the impact of the demonic essence, the origin sword was immediately sent flying. At this moment of crisis, a man grasped his sword, took a step, and leaped up. A man took a step in the air and moved 300 meters away. She looked at the king in front of her and said softly, "Sister Mu, prepare to retreat. We can't win." Mu Qingxue nodded. He temporarily suppressed the injuries on his body and prepared to retreat. "You want to leave? Dream on." Seeing through the two's thoughts, the Scale King snorted coldly. He raised both of his hands, and instantly, wind howled and thunder rumbled. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, a dark force swept out, blocking the two's escape route. Knowing that he could not be trapped here, Mu Qingxue unleashed the last of his forbidden energy. The Great Yin's green sparrow sword emitted a dazzling brilliance. With a slash of the sword, the galaxy turned upside down. With a boom, the supreme forbidden energy blocked the king's power. Amidst the violent vibrations, Mu Qingxue's figure flashed, and the travel scroll was pushed to the extreme. He took a man who was beside him, and turned into a stream of light. In the starry sky, the Scale King raised his hand to disperse the surging forbidden energy in front of him. He looked at the two people in front of him, and his killing intent surged. He could not suppress his anger. Half a day later, on an unknown life planet, 2 figures appeared. The moment they landed, the beautiful figure in white staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood, dyeing her white clothes red. Mu Qingxue, whose forbidden energy was depleted and his body injured, felt his consciousness become heavy, and he fell straight down. "Sister Mu." A man was shocked and immediately reached out to support the former. Primordial Demon Realm, Western Continent. For the past few days, a white-clothed figure walked forward. Her speed was not fast, and since she entered the mortal realm, her speed seemed to have slowed down. There were battles everywhere in the continent, and killings could be seen everywhere. Ningchen had saved people and ignored them. He followed his heart and did not force himself. Kindness and hatred had become so ordinary in this continent. Everything was like a fleeting cloud, and gradually they were forgotten. In the past, he had walked too fast and missed too many things in the mortal realm. Now that he was starting all over again, he could see more clearly. Sorrow, joy, separation, reunion, slaughter, redemption, joy, and hatred. The more one experienced, the heavier the shackles on one's body. The traces of time could never be shifted by one's will. They were silently engraved on one's forehead and body. His white hair was as white as snow. Although his face did not change much compared to 100 years ago, the young man from back then could not be seen anymore. Every step he took left clear footprints on the ground. The weight of time was pressing down on him, and he gradually grew old. "Mother, look, there is a white-haired person." In front of the village, a child pointed into the distance and said in surprise. The child's mother looked in the direction of the child's finger, but she did not see anything. She could not help but scold. "How can there be a white-haired person? Children should not lie." "I saw it just now." The child pouted and said softly. 100 miles away, the white-clothed figure appeared. She took a step and disappeared again. The mortal realm scenery was left behind. He had seen it and remembered it in his heart. In the west, it was getting colder. After months of running, there was still no news of the 2 fox princesses. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. Although Ningchen was prepared, he could not help but feel disappointed. The extermination of the Fox clan was caused by the celestial demons. Wanner and Xiao Xiao must hate the celestial demons and even him. Even if they knew that he was looking for them, they probably would not show up easily. He did not know if he could find them, but as long as he was in the primordial demon realm, he would not give up. In the western sacred region, a pure land ruled by the Golden Lion clan, the fighting and killing gradually decreased. Ningchen walked towards the center of the sacred region. The scenery in the sacred region was beautiful, and the exotic atmosphere was very strong. The golden-haired men were as strong as bulls, and the blue-eyed women were as enchanting as snakes. Ningchen walked among them. His white hair was very eye-catching. The blue-eyed women saw the handsome knowing destiny, and ripples appeared in their eyes. The women whispered to each other, and their eyes never left him. The women's eyes were attracted, and many men were jealous. A strong golden-haired man blocked Ningchen's way and provoked him. Ningchen ignored him and continued to walk forward. Being ignored, the man was furious and punched the person in front of him. Bang! Just as the man's fist landed, a young man with thick blonde hair appeared between them and blocked the man's fist. "Brother Ning, long time no see." Hong Yuan looked at the young man beside him and smiled. Third Prince. On the street, the people saw him and were shocked. Ningchen nodded and said calmly, "Long time no see. You may leave." Hong Yuan looked at the man in front of him indifferently, and then sent him flying with a bang. 10 feet away, the man fell to the ground. He got up awkwardly and did not dare to stay any longer. He quickly left. "Brother Ning, welcome to the sacred region." With the trouble solved, Hong Yuan looked back at the person in front of him and said seriously, "Thank you." Ningchen replied and said, "I'll have to trouble you for a few days." Chapter 1107. In the sky beyond heaven, in the unknown God realm, a young girl with bright eyes and white teeth sat on a wheelchair. Her handicapped body didn't bring her too much trouble. Perhaps it wasn't that Peacock didn't care, but her identity as a goddess prevented her from thinking about these useless things. On the peak of the God realm, Peacock sat quietly as she looked at the starry sky. The rise and fall of the human world was reflected in her eyes. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 100 years. Behind Peacock, a man in white walked over. His face was still as young as 100 years ago. Young Master Xiaobai, a peerless genius who was famous in the starry sky 200 years ago. He disappeared after the battle with the Lord of the Underworld, and only reappeared in the human world during the chaos of the 100 races. "What are you looking at?" Young Master Xiaobai followed the girl's gaze and asked. "The world of mortals." Peacock replied. "The world of mortals is boundless. Even Buddha and gods can't see through it. Why are you looking for trouble?" Young Master Xiaobai said calmly. "If I can't personally experience the world of mortals, I can't truly leave the world of mortals. I can't leave and can only watch from here." Peacock said softly. "You are a goddess. Naturally, you can't easily enter the world of mortals. Peacock, with your talent, you don't have to go through all this. A goddess is ultimately different from ordinary people." Young Master Xiaobai retracted his gaze and looked at the girl in front of him. There was a hint of heartache in his eyes as he said, "A goddess is also a mortal. How can you truly not enter the world of mortals?" Peacock said calmly, "Since ancient times, there have been countless kings and emperors. Those who are heartless have all stopped at a certain point in their life. The heavenly Tao is heartless. Humans can't be heartless anymore." "You're still so eloquent. I can't win against you." Young Master Xiaobai sighed helplessly. Young Master Xiaobai purposely lost to the Lord of the Underworld because of emotions. Compared to winning and losing, using the most extreme method to severely injure the Lord of the Underworld in exchange for 100 years of peace is the most respectable action. Peacock said faintly. Young Master Xiaobai chuckled. "Now that the goddess has said it, I feel that I'm a little noble. However, I didn't think so much back then. As long as Mo Luotian can lie down longer than me, a temporary victory or defeat is nothing." When he spoke up to hear, young Master Xiaobai's gaze looked towards the clouds in the distant Red Luan galaxy and continued. "Actually, compared to us, that young man from the Nether King's Pure Land is the true heaven's chosen one." "He is not the chosen one." Peacock shook her head and said calmly, "He is the son of misfortune. Ever since he appeared, the human world has been plagued with disasters. Be it the Pure Land of Hades or the realm beyond heaven, it is the same. This is inevitable. It has nothing to do with him." Young Master Xiaobai said seriously. "Even if this kid didn't appear, the Nether King would still descend into the world, and the 100 races would still break out of the seal. This is the will of the world, and no one can change it. I'm not saying that he is to be blamed for these things. The knowing destiny state was born. Unfortunately, it's not luck but misfortune. This is his misfortune and the misfortune of the world. Peacock looked into the distance and said softly, "For the past 100 years, Master has been paying attention to this person, and even wants him to become the new master of the realm of the gods. However, I don't think he will succeed." "Why?" Young Master Xiaobai laughed and said, "Just because Master wants you to marry this knowing destiny Marquis." Peacock ignored the former's teasing and continued calmly, "Because of his innate talent, and even more so because of his karma. Although innate talent is not an absolute factor that determines a martial artist's ultimate destination, it is still a crucial aid that cannot be ignored. We have all seen how difficult it was for him to break through to the immortal realm in the past 100 years, not to mention the celestial realm in the secular world. I do not deny his hard work and astonishing willpower, but since ancient times, how many mortals have been able to ascend to immortality? The celestial realm in the secular world is just too difficult for him. As for the karma that I mentioned, you should know what it is. When the eternal night descends upon the world, all living beings will have to undergo immeasurable tribulations. He borrowed the lives of all living beings to send Yama away, and the unfinished tribulations of all living beings will forever be on him." Young Master Xiaobai was silent. After a long time, he smiled bitterly and said, "Perhaps this is the tribulation that a successful person should face. Otherwise, Master wouldn't want this kid to become the new master of the realm of the gods." "I respect Master's decision, but I will keep my own opinion," Peacock said seriously. "If one day I am wrong, then I will abide by the agreement and wholeheartedly assist the new master of the realm of the gods." "You are still so proud." Young Master Xiaobai sighed. "In fact, he has done well enough. Even those geniuses are far inferior to this Marquis Jiming. What he has done these years has already surpassed the limits of the younger generation. After all, he has only cultivated for a little more than 100 years. We can't ask for more." "It's not enough," Peacock said calmly. "He is the future master of the realm of the gods. Then he must surpass everyone. From now on, his opponents are not the younger generation, but the kings and emperors of the 100 races. No matter how long he has cultivated, the kings and emperors of the 100 races have already appeared. This is an indisputable fact. Peacock's match is the master of the human world who can calm the war. Otherwise, my existence is meaningless. Peacock, don't be too harsh on yourself and that young man. You are still young. There is no need to force yourself so much." While they were talking, an old man with a walking stick appeared behind them. His face was full of vicissitudes of life. He was the master of the godly land, the emperor who protected the human world. He slowly walked over step by step. "Master! Master!" Peacock and young Master Xiaobai bowed respectfully. The old man nodded and looked at the human world with his weathered eyes. He said softly, "There are 9 supreme emperors in the primeval demon realm, but we humans only have less than 3. This gap cannot be closed in a short time." That young man opened the ancient battlefield and bought a lot of time for the human world. Now there are people in the human world who have entered the 4th level. One day, we humans will have the strength to rival the 100 races. "Master, do you really think that day will come?" Young Master Xiaobai sighed. "With 9 as the limit, the number of supreme emperors in the primeval demon realm has reached the limit. Although there will be supreme emperors in the human world in the future, according to the number of 4th level cultivators now, there will be at most 1 or 2. We are still far from the primeval demon realm. Have you forgotten how those young people sent away Pluto's pure land in the past?" The old man looked into the distance and said seriously, "Compared to now, the situation in the divine prefecture was more than 10 times worse. That was true despair, and there was no light at all. But those young people still did it because they never gave up. Over the years, look at those young people from the divine prefecture. No matter what kind of situation they face, their optimism is far beyond that of ordinary people. I chose that young man because he will never give up. He will never give up on himself, and will never give up on others. Master, now that you mention it, I also feel that Marquis Jiming is not simple." Young Master Xiaobai smiled. "Will there be a second miracle?" Peacock asked after a moment of silence. No matter whether it will appear or not, we should believe that there will be a day. The old man said softly. That young man who once created miracles is still working hard to create miracles. Perhaps he never thought of saving the world, but for the people he cherishes, he did so without hesitation. There is one more thing that you may not know. Speaking of this, the old man looked at the two and said, Not long ago, I felt a strong burst of vitality before the phoenix nirvana. Something must have happened to the phoenix body that the young man left in this world. Without the phoenix body, his strength will weaken a lot. There is always a limit to a person's strength. This great calamity of the human race should not be borne by those young people. When the time is right, you should leave the divine realm to help him. Yes. Young Master Xiaobai replied softly. On the side, Peacock nodded slightly, but did not really express her opinion. The old man did not say much. The peacock goddess of each generation was the woman of destiny. Peacock's pride would not change because of anyone, not even him. However, if that young man wanted to fight against the king and emperor of the 100 tribes, Peacock's existence would be an indispensable help. Whether Peacock could be subdued or not depended on whether Phoenix could be reborn from the fire and rule the world. At the same time, in the endless starry sky, in the primeval demon realm, in the sanctuary deep in the western holy city, a white-haired figure in plain clothes walked over. He entered the royal family and negotiated with them. In the sanctuary, one palace after another spread along the rugged holy mountain. At the top, there was a towering holy palace. It was magnificent and extraordinary. Beside Ji Ming, Hong Yuan accompanied him as they walked along the path of the holy mountain. Along the way, the palaces that they had to pass through were empty. No one was guarding them. However, Ning Chen could clearly feel the terrifying aura in the depths of each palace. Each aura was not weaker than the late-stage king realm. It was very shocking. 12 palaces, 12 cultivators in the late-stage king realm, or even the peak king realm. Even the celestial devil royal family could not compare. The Golden Lion clan was the legendary descendant of the sun god. Their bloodline was noble and extremely powerful. The sun god had disappeared from the world for so long that the legends were untraceable. However, no one had ever doubted the strength of the Golden Lion clan. Every leader of the Golden Lion clan had the strength to rival the strongest celestial devil royal family. The Golden Lions had the strongest attack in the world. Even the celestial devil royal family did not dare to go against them easily. After passing through the 12 palaces, the holy palace at the top of the holy mountain came into view. The huge and majestic building made the people below feel small. Brother Ning, please. Hong Yuan said softly. Thank you. Ning Chen replied softly and walked toward the holy palace. After a few breaths, the two stepped into the holy palace. In an instant, golden light rose from the 12 palaces at the bottom of the holy mountain. The 12 beams of light connected and blocked all the mysteries of the holy mountain. Chapter 1108. In the western sacred region, Ji Ming and Hong Yuan walked into the sacred palace. The huge palace was empty. They couldn't see anyone. The two walked forward and passed through the front hall. Their surroundings changed and a new scene appeared in front of them. Behind the sacred palace, a majestic statue of a god stood there, shining with golden light. In front of the statue, the throne was lying there quietly. There was no one in sight. Father. The two stopped 100 steps in front of the throne. Hong Yuan bowed and said respectfully, I've brought the guests. As soon as he said that, golden light shone in front of the throne. A figure with an extremely powerful aura appeared. He was surrounded by golden light as if the sun god had descended. Greetings, sacred lord. Ning Chen bowed and said, 13th prince, there's no need to be so polite. In front of the throne, the emperor of the Golden Lion clan and the sacred region lord responded calmly and continued, 13th prince, why have you come to the sacred region from so far away? I'm looking for someone. Ning Chen said calmly, sacred lord. You should already know what happened to the Fox clan. The princess of the Fox clan and I are engaged. I'm only here to find her. The Fox clan was exterminated in one day. No one knows why. 13th prince, you were the first to arrive. Do you know what happened? The Sacred Lord of the Golden Lion clan asked. It's a long story. Ning Chun sighed softly and said, a traitor has appeared in the Celestial Fiend Imperial clan and sent people to slaughter the entire Green Hill Fox clan. Their crimes are monstrous. Although I've executed the executioners they sent, the mastermind behind this is still at large. It's difficult to find them. I see. The Sacred Lord of the Golden Lion clan nodded and said, 13th Prince, you've been searching for many days. Have you found anything? Ningchen shook his head and said, nothing. That's why I came to the sacred region to ask for your help. To be honest, 13th Prince, I've been sending people to look for the princess of the Fox clan for the past few months. However, there hasn't been any news so far. However, I'll continue to send people to look for her. Once I find something, I'll inform you immediately, the Sacred Lord of the Golden Lion clan said calmly. Thank you, Holy Lord. Ningchen thanked him and looked at the master of the Western Sanctuary. There's one more thing. As a junior, I would like to remind the Holy Lord that the Sky Devil Imperial family has been in turmoil recently. The rebels have been inciting wars everywhere. I'm sure the Holy Lord has noticed that the Howling Moon clan, Phoenix clan, and Fox clan have all been attacked. Although the sanctuary is far away in the west, the rebels are powerful. 13th Crown Prince, I will keep your reminder in mind. I wonder what your Highness Master, the demonic Emperor of the Nine Serenities, thinks about the recent upheaval of the Celestial Devil Imperial family. 3 imperial families have been exterminated one after another. Are we just going to let it go like this? Under the huge statue, the Saint Lord of the Golden Lion clan asked seriously. The rebels are powerful and cannot be stopped in a day or two. However, Master's attitude is very firm. He will absolutely not change his position and wallow in the darkness. Ningchen reminded him without leaving a trace. When the sacred leader of the Golden Lion clan heard this, he squinted his eyes and said, if that's the case, I am relieved. Holy Lord, Ningchen said seriously, the 5 imperial families have 5 emperors. If we work together, we will be invincible. If we separate, we will not be able to do anything. There are 9 emperors in the entire primordial demon realm. Besides Master and the masters of the 5 imperial families, there are only 3 left. If the 5 imperial families work together, they will be able to conquer the world. Even if the Sky Devil Imperial family rebelled. Don't you think so, Holy Lord? We don't have a good reason to act. Moreover, the 5 imperial families are all very cautious. Who would dare to gamble the fate of their entire clan on others? The sacred leader of the Golden Lion clan said straightforwardly. Although everyone knew about the current situation, the 5 imperial families were not all on good terms. It was easy to say that they would work together, but it was too difficult to do. No one could be sure that there were no puppets or spies of the Sky Devil Imperial family in the 5 imperial families. Working together was based on trust. What the 5 imperial families lacked the most now was trust. The Sky Devil Imperial family's rebellion has already affected other clans. If the 5 imperial families send troops, they will have a good reason to do so. As for the problem of trust among the 5 imperial families, someone has to take the first step. This first step might be the Sorcerer tribe, or the Divine Capital Mountain, or the Golden Lion clan. I think that as long as someone is willing to take the first step, the rebellion will be suppressed like a spark in a prairie. The sacred leader of the Golden Lion clan was silent. After a long while he said, as long as someone is willing to send troops to quell the rebellion, the sanctuary will not fall behind. It is the responsibility of all clans to protect the peace of the primordial demon realm. The Golden Lion clan will not shirk our responsibility. Ningchen had heard about this before. He understood the sacred leader's attitude. The Golden Lion clan was not willing to be the first person to take the first step, but if the imperial family took the lead, the Golden Lion clan would be willing to help. Perhaps this was the attitude of all the other clans. The Sky Devil Imperial family was powerful. No one was willing to take the lead. However, in the current situation, if the other clans did not work together, they would be defeated by the Sky Devil Imperial family one by one until the Sky Devil Imperial family ruled the entire primordial demon realm. I understand Saint Lord's intention. I think the situation you want to see will happen very soon. When the time comes, I hope Saint Lord will remember the promise you made today, and help the various clans to quell the rebellion in the imperial clan of the celestial devils, said Ningchen softly. I will wait for that day to come, the sacred leader of the Golden Lion clan said seriously. After discussing the important matters, Ningchen did not stay any longer. He excused himself from the sacred leader, and walked down the sacred mountain. Hong Yuan sent him off. The two of them went back the way they came, passing through many palaces on the sacred mountain. Just then, at the top of the sacred mountain, in front of the statue, the sacred leader of the Golden Lion clan said indifferently, Sarah, test this boy's strength. Yes. On the sacred mountain in the 6th palace, a calm voice sounded. The next moment, a young man surrounded by golden light appeared in the palace. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged in the void. His aura was like the ocean. Vaguely, he had touched the barrier of the imperial plane. Sarah formed a seal. In an instant, a majestic golden light beam shot up into the sky. Above the 9 heavens, the golden light turned into a golden meteor, and shot toward Knowing Destiny, who had just come out of the palace. Outside the 6th palace, Ningchen sensed something. He looked back at the golden light beam falling from the sky. A serious look flashed in his eyes. Sarah, the lord of the 6th palace in the sacred mountain, was said to be the person closest to the imperial plane. He was extremely powerful. Facing a legendary cultivator, Ningchen did not dare to be careless. The sword aura around him came out of nowhere. In an instant, the sword realm spread out. Tens of thousands of swords gathered and formed a protective barrier in the sky. With a boom, the golden light shook the tens of thousands of swords. The two huge forces collided. The surrounding stone steps immediately collapsed and scattered in the sky. Cultivator. In the 6th palace, Sarah, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, said calmly. Chapter 1109. On the sacred mountain in the western sacred region, the lord of the 6th palace made his move. The strongest person in the world who was closest to the imperial path was ordered to test Knowing Destiny. A golden pillar of light fell from the sky like a vast ocean. Knowing Destiny sensed it, and tens of thousands of swords flew out to block the attack. In the shocking vibration, the tens of thousands of swords were defeated and the golden pillar of light also collapsed and disappeared. After probing with this move, Sarah stopped and did not make any more moves. On the peak of the sacred mountain, under the statue of the sun god, the lord of the sacred region watched this scene with a strange look in his eyes. He knew Shama's strength very well. Even in the 12 palaces of the sacred region, he was definitely one of the top 2. When he used his full strength, he could even fight with the imperial path. The fact that the 13th prince of the Sky Devil royal family could withstand Shama's attack was indeed extraordinary. What was even more shocking was that just now, he clearly felt that the 13th prince's cultivation had completely dissipated, as the rumors said. In that case, the 13th prince had blocked Shama's attack with just his extreme path strength. Not to mention the younger generation. Even the kings who had lived for thousands of years would find it difficult to do so. The 13th prince's tolerance was really unfathomable. Outside the 6th palace, Ningchen looked back at the golden figure floating in the hall behind him, and bowed politely. Thank you for showing mercy, Lord. At the end of the eastern continent, there is a heavenly heart flower that can repair the injured body. If there is an opportunity, Your Highness can give it a try. In the 6th palace, Shama said calmly. Hearing this, Ningchen nodded slightly and said, Thank you. After that, Ningchen did not stay any longer, and continued to walk down the sacred mountain. Knowing Destiny left. In the 12 palaces, the kings looked at the 6th palace and asked through telepathy, Shama, did you show mercy? No. In the 6th palace, Shama shook his head and said, His sword has already reached the extreme realm. When the day comes, even you will not be able to match him. Hearing this, the palace lords looked serious. Shama's words could not be false. The 13th prince's potential was indeed shocking. At the foot of the sacred mountain, Ningchen said goodbye to Hong Yuan, and rushed to the north. 2 months later, in the sorcerer tribe's territory in the northern continent, Ningchen appeared and walked directly to the sorcerer tribe's sacred land. Countless altars covered the vast and boundless wasteland. At the very center of the wasteland was an enormous altar. It was ancient and solemn, and it had existed for countless years. Not long after knowing destiny entered the great wilderness, in the holy land of the sorcerer tribe, Tianqin sensed something and opened his eyes. Looking at the figure in the distance, he said, "Master, he's here. Welcome." Behind the altar in the center, an old voice spoke calmly from the sorcerer tribe's holy temple. Yes. Heaven Heart accepted the order. He took a step forward and disappeared. 10,000 miles away, the void shook and a beautiful figure walked out. She looked at the young man walking over and waited quietly. "Miss Tianqin." Ning Chen greeted politely when he saw the newcomer. 13th Prince, you really came. Tian Xian whispered. Could it be that Miss Tian Xian already knew that I was coming? Ning Chen asked. After the incident with the Fox clan, Master said that your highness would definitely come, so he told me to be prepared to welcome you at any time. Heaven Heart said honestly. Emperor Go's wisdom is truly admirable, said Ning Chen with an expression of admiration. Please follow me. As he spoke, Tian Yu formed a seal with his hands and a dim light rose around them. After a few breaths, the space opened and swallowed the two figures. In the middle of the altar in the sorcerer tribe's holy temple, a dim light rose and the two figures appeared. They were 10,000 miles away in the blink of an eye. Ning Chen looked at the tens of thousands of altars around him, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. It turned out that these altars could be used as spatial arrays. The sorcerer tribe was established in the northern mainland, and was the most low-key tribe among the 5 royal tribes. They rarely appeared in the eyes of the world. However, every successor of the sorcerer tribe was a rare fortune teller in the world. Their ability to predict the future was unparalleled. Prophets, no matter where they were extremely terrifying existences, causing people to be apprehensive. The two appeared at the middle of the altar. In the distance, an old woman walked out from the sorcerer tribe's holy temple. Only her wise eyes could not be eroded by time. Greetings, Emperor Go. Ning Chen bowed and said respectfully. No need to be so polite. In front of the sorcerer tribe's holy temple, the woman said, Are you here to ask about the whereabouts of the 2 princesses of the Fox clan? Please tell me, Emperor Go. Ning Chen said seriously. The fate of a heavenly lady is comparable to that of an emperor. Even I cannot see it clearly. I can tell you that the 2 heavenly ladies of the Fox clan are not in danger. You can rest assured. The woman said calmly. So Emperor Go already knew that Wan and Xiao Xiao were heavenly ladies. Ning Chen said with a strange expression. The fate of the Fox clan could not bear 2 heavenly ladies of the Fox clan. The extermination of the Fox clan was not accidental. The king of the Fox clan wanted to avoid this calamity through marriage with the imperial family of the heavenly demonic tribe, but it backfired and hastened the arrival of this day. Emperor Go replied in front of the holy temple. Ning Chen was silent. He had always been against the idea of fate. He did not believe that everything was decided by fate. If everything was decided by the heavens, then what was the point of all his hard work? Your Highness, do you have any other questions? Emperor Go asked again. The fate of the sorcerer tribe. Ning Chen suppressed the waves in his heart and looked at the emperor in front of the holy temple. He said seriously, Emperor Go, you can see the fate of the sorcerer tribe. Let's not beat around the bush. Everyone can see the current situation in the primordial demon territory. If someone wants to unify the primordial demon territory, the 5 imperial families will be the biggest obstacle. Especially the sorcerer tribe who can predict everything. They will definitely be the first opponent to be eliminated by the ambitious. Emperor Go sighed softly and said, You came from the Western Sanctuary. Did you get the answer? The Lord of the Sanctuary is wise and agreed to send troops. However, the Western Sanctuary is not the first target of the ambitious, and will not be the first to send troops. Ning Chen said honestly. So you came to the sorcerer tribe? Emperor Go narrowed his eyes and said, You think the sorcerer tribe will be the first to stand out? It is not what I think. It is the result of the general situation. Of course, the sorcerer tribe can choose to submit. If so, I have nothing to say. Ningchen said lightly. How dare you? Emperor Go's face turned cold and he said, I do not want to hear such words a second time. Otherwise, even if you are Xianjuyo's disciple, you will not be able to leave the sorcerer tribe alive today. I am sorry, I have misspoken. Ningchen bowed and said apologetically. At the side, Tian Xian quietly listened to the conversation between the two and did not interrupt. Although his master and the 13th prince did not point it out, the Sky Devil Imperial family's ambition to rule the world was obvious. Once the Sky Devil Imperial family started to cause trouble, the sorcerer tribe, who had the ability to predict the future, would undoubtedly become the Sky Devil Imperial family's first target. After apologizing, Ningchen stood up and looked in front of him. He did not back down and said seriously, Emperor Go, the sorcerer tribe has no way out now. If we advance, we may be able to fight with the heavens. If we retreat, we will fall into the abyss. The end is set. In front of the Sage Hall, Emperor Go was silent. Although he knew that Ningchen was telling the truth, he still could not make a decision. Seeing that Emperor Go was silent, Ningchen took a step forward and said, Senior Go, do you really want the sorcerer tribe's legacy to end in your generation? Chapter 11:10. In the sorcerer tribe's holy land, Jiming met with the sorcerer tribe's sovereign. His aggressive words were merciless and the atmosphere froze for a moment. The inheritance had been passed down through 100 generations, and the importance of this responsibility had already been deeply ingrained into the bloodline of every single ruler. Even if they were peerless emperors or peerless emperors, they were still unable to avoid this responsibility. 100 years ago, there was an emperor in Great Xia who was forced to the point of insanity by Fan Lingyue, causing his temperament to change drastically. The rise and fall of a dynasty was too heavy of a responsibility. If one rose, their reputations would last for eternity. If one fell, their reputation would be tarnished for tens of thousands of years. No one was willing to become a sinner for all eternity. They would be too ashamed to face their ancestors in the Yellow Springs. In front of the sorcerer tribe's holy palace, Emperor Go remained silent for a long time. The legacy of the sorcerer tribe had been passed down for hundreds of generations. No matter what, it could not be cut off in her generation. Emperor Go, as long as you agree to take this step, I am confident that I can convince the other royal families to send out their troops and fight against the evil demons together. On the altar, Ningchen solemnly promised. Why is the 13th prince in such a hurry for the imperial families to send out their troops? Is it only because of the Fox clan's holy maiden? Emperor Go calmed himself down and looked at the young man on the altar in the distance. This is only one of the reasons. Just like how Senior Go Huang doesn't want to become a sinner of the shaman tribe, I'm a human, and I don't want to watch the demons wreak havoc and the human race fall. The sorcerer tribe can send out their troops first, but I have a condition. Emperor Go said in a deep voice, Your Highness, you must guarantee that the 9 underworld demon emperor will not make a move. Otherwise, even if the 5 great imperial families join forces, the outcome will not change. They were all emperors, but the gap between them couldn't be ignored. The celestial devil imperial family already had a demon emperor Koen Yi. If the Juyo demon emperor joined the battle, it would be a one-sided battle. Sure. Hearing the sorcerer tribe's sovereign's response, Ningchen nodded solemnly and said, I'll think of a way to delay master. Senior Go Huang, you can rest assured. I will wait for your highness good news in the sorcerer tribe. Tianxin, send the guest off. Go Huang said calmly. Goodbye. Ningchen cupped his fists and bowed. Your highness, please. At the side, Tian Xian said softly. As his voice fell, a dim light rose up from the altar and swallowed up the 2 figures. After a few breaths of time, space trembled thousands of miles away, and 2 figures walked out. Your Highness will meet again. In the great desolate lands, Tian Xian looked at the person before him and said softly, Until we meet again. Ningchen said his goodbyes and strode forward. Heaven Heart stared at the back of the former. After a long time, the former's figure faded and disappeared. Master, he's gone. Tian Xian appeared on the altar at the center of the sorcerer tribe's holy land. Tell the 12 shamans to prepare. The war is about to begin. In front of the sacred palace, Go Huang looked into the distance with a solemn expression. Yes. Tian Xian replied seriously. A month later, Knowing Destiny appeared in the eastern continent. He was wearing plain clothes and had white hair. 100 years ago, Fan Lingyue single-handedly pushed the world to attack the Xia. 100 years later, Xi Ming traveled to various regions for the future of the human race, inciting the various royal families to join forces to slay the demons. It was unknown whether it was fate or fate, but the two people who hoped for peace the most had become the conspirators who started the war one after another. At the same time, in the primordial demon area, in the Three Emperor City, secret reports about Knowing Ming's whereabouts were sent to the mansions of the royal families. Have you found the whereabouts of the two princes of the Fox clan? In the mansions of the first and third crown princes, two figures asked in a deep voice. Your Highness, we haven't found anything yet. In front of the two royal mansions, Shadow replied. They had different standpoints but the same answer. Continue. Yes. Also, tell the Lord of the Sunrise Royal City where he is. In the first crown prince's mansion, the fifth prince's cold voice sounded. Yes. In the ancestral land of the heavenly demons, powerful auras appeared. After the ancient age, almost all the royal bloodlines had sealed themselves in the source of demons, waiting for the next era to come. The 13th prince has gone to the divine capital mountain. Among the many powerful heavenly demons, 3 extremely terrifying auras floated. One of them said coldly, he still hasn't given up on finding the two princes of the Fox clan? Another person snorted. It seems that this child has fallen for her. I didn't expect that Nine Nether would choose to sink into depravity for a human girl. Today his disciple would walk the same path. The strongest of the 3 auras sighed softly. At the same time, in the royal palace of the Nine Nether King's mansion, demonic flames circled around. A majestic and domineering man appeared. He looked to the far east as a stream of light flashed past. Everyone had their own path. No matter what Ning Chen chose in the future, he wouldn't interfere. His only hope was that Ning Chen would choose this path himself and never regret it. On the divine capital mountain, there were many steep peaks. On the highest peak, there were many palaces that were comparable to palaces in the mortal world. In the divine capital, a tall figure in dark red armor stood quietly, looking down at the world. He was extraordinarily handsome. Behind him, a white-haired young man in plain clothes had been there for a long time. Look at the scenery of the mortal world. How beautiful it is. Unfortunately, it will soon be destroyed in the flames of war. The Lord of the divine capital stood on the peak and said plainly, only through destruction can it be even more beautiful on the day of rebirth. Ning Chen said calmly. If it's completely destroyed, how can it be reborn? The Lord of the divine capital said coldly. Then we'll rebuild it. As long as we win this war, the future primitive demon realm will no longer be a demon realm. Ning Chen said seriously. You're very bold. The Lord of the divine capital said calmly. What do you think will happen to you if the 3 demon emperors find out that you were the one who started this war? You flatter me. Ning Chen looked humble. I don't have the right to start a war. This is the general trend. I'm just a messenger. It's not important. Huh? The Lord of the divine capital smiled faintly and said, go. As long as I see the situation you've described, I'll naturally send troops to help. I'll take my leave. Ning Chen bowed, then turned around and walked out of the divine capital. Half a month later, at the end of the eastern continent, Ning Chen walked over. The barren polar region was cold and silent. The Lord of the 6th Palace in the Western Sanctuary had said that there was a heavenly heart flower here. Whether it was true or not, he had to come and take a look. The legend of the heavenly heart flower had been around since ancient times. Although it wasn't as divine as the divine flower or the immortal peach tree, its effects were still miraculous. Legend had it that the heavenly heart flower had the miraculous ability to revive the dead. As long as there was still a breath left, it could immediately revive someone who was half a step away from death. Ning Chen didn't believe these rumors. He had once owned the immortal divine tree, so he knew more about such divine items than anyone else. Therefore, reviving the dead was only a legend. At the end of the polar region, clouds and mist filled the air. Many towering peaks reached into the clouds like heavenly pillars. It was a spectacular sight. It was the first time Ning Chun had seen such a miraculous scene. He couldn't help but stop and look at it for a long time. In the memories of his first life, there was a legend in the East. There was a heavenly pillar at the end of the world that held up the 9 heavens and stabilized the land. It was very important. At that time, he had always thought that it was just a legend. Now that he saw it, he realized that the world was big and full of wonders. One would never know how high the sky was from the bottom of a well. Ning Chun took a step forward and soared into the air. He left no traces behind as he stepped on the snow. His figure was like a floating leaf as he soared into the 9 heavens. A white-clothed figure soared up the huge peaks. He was so fast that it was hard to catch sight of him. The 9 heavens were high and covered in snow. The higher one went, the lower the temperature. Gradually, the entire sky seemed to freeze, making it difficult to advance. Ning Chun looked at the sky. He didn't stop. He shouted, and a sword aura spread out around him. He turned into a sword. In an instant, a white sword light soared into the 9 heavens and slashed open the frozen sky. Cold winds blew in the 9 heavens. The white sword light scattered. Ning Chun took a step forward and arrived at the peak. He looked into the distance, searching for the heavenly heart flower. Several towering peaks of similar height stood before him. When he looked into the distance, he saw white snow. It had been frozen for 10,000 years and had never changed. After looking into the distance for a long time, Ning Chun didn't see any signs of life. He exerted force with his feet, and a huge rock was sent flying. Ning Chun took another step forward, and his figure soared 100,000 zhang away. He arrived above the huge rock, and with another step, he traveled another 100,000 zhang. After a few breaths, the white-clothed figure arrived at the peak of the opposite peak. Even though he had lost his cultivation, the dangers of heaven and earth couldn't stop him with his strong physical body. After searching for half a day, Ning Chun found nothing. The sun set in the west, and the sky of the entire primordial demon realm started to darken. Ning Chun frowned. He knew that he was not fated. He didn't want to waste any more time and flew down the peak. Just at this moment, a golden sword light soared through the sky from afar. It was surrounded by golden flames, and its might was shocking. Ning Chun's face sank as he fell. He took a step in the air and quickly stopped himself. Ning Chun stood between the peaks. He looked at the figure in front of him, and a serious look flashed in his eyes. The young man holding a sword came from afar. He looked cold, and his killing intent surged. He didn't hide it at all. "You guys come out as well," Ning Chun said coldly as he glanced at the two sides. As soon as he said that, many black-clothed figures appeared on the two sides. They wore black veils and covered their faces. "I didn't expect that crown prince to collude with outsiders just to kill me." Ning Chun looked at the Lord of Sunrise Royal City, and said calmly. In the air, Ness Yao's figure flashed, and the Better Cloud Divine sword was unsheathed. In an instant, the wind blew and the clouds surged. With a boom, the Devil's sword blocked the divine weapon. Ning Chun looked at the Lord of Sunrise Royal City who was right in front of him, and said with a calm expression, "This is the last time. What I owe you I've paid." As soon as he said that, Ning Chun stepped into the air and entered the 9 heavens. The Devil's sword reflected the moonlight, and an earth-shattering power spread out rapidly. Great Sword Realm, Sword Emperor. Above the Sword Realm, a bloody light rose. On the Moon Devil Divine Sword, countless red sword energy gathered and formed a realm of its own. A dragon among men, an emperor among swords. Knowing destiny held the sword and slashed down. The most extreme sword, with endless destructive power, appeared to destroy the world. The unforgettable sword became the last memory of this life. Below, dozens of black-clothed figures couldn't dodge in time, and were instantly swallowed by the sword light. Chapter 11:11. At the easternmost end of the primal devil realm, a single sword strike shook the world. Below the sky-piercing mountain, a blood-red sword light slashed apart the mortal world. Its world-shaking might terrified thousands of devils. In the sky, black-clothed figures could not dodge in time, and were instantly swallowed by the sword light. Blood splattered down like rain, dyeing the sky-piercing mountain red. At the center of the battlefield, Yu Yao looked at the blood-red sword light descending from the sky. He swung B-Cloud to receive it. With a rumble, the extreme power of the sword suppressed the king. Yu Yao's figure continued to fall. 10 meters, 300 meters, 3,000 meters. At 3,000 meters, Yu Yao's figure stopped. The blood-red sword light disappeared, and the remaining power dispersed. Drip. Crimson blood dripped down from the sky. The scorching three-legged golden crow's blood could not be stopped by the cold. White mist rose and quickly evaporated. So you have such extraordinary combat strength. This is good too. I can send you to the next world with a clear conscience. Seeing that the person in the sky was not crippled like what the Heavenly Devil clan said, Yu Yao coldly said. Then he took a step in the air and soared into the sky. Boom. With a violent tremor, the two divine weapons clashed again. The sharp sword energy shook continuously and slashed at the sky-piercing mountain. Instantly, huge rocks flew and smashed towards the two. Yu Yao and Ning Chen swung their swords to knock away the huge rocks. Their figures intertwined with each other, and their sword light crisscrossed. Behind the two, the sky-piercing mountain received the aftermath of the battle. The sword energy broke into the mountain, and the sky-piercing mountain shook violently, showing signs of collapse. At this moment, in the depths of the Heavenly Devil ancestral land, a mighty figure suddenly opened his eyes. Murderous intent surged around him, and his face was filled with anger. What happened? 7 luminaries and 8 desolation asked in confusion. Someone is fighting on the sky-piercing mountain. First Kunyi Demon Emperor said solemnly. So what? 7 luminaries Demon Emperor frowned, still confused. You don't understand. Nothing must happen to the sky-piercing mountain. After saying that, First Kunyi Demon Emperor took a step forward and disappeared. It's been a long time since I saw Big Brother so nervous. 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said. Perhaps the towering sky peak has secrets that we don't know about. As for what they are, we'll have to wait until my brother returns. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said sternly. At the same time, 9 Nether appeared in the 9 Nether King's residence. He looked to the east with a solemn expression. Why would Ning Chen go to towering sky peak? In the 6th palace of the Western Sacred Realm, a figure of golden light floated up and down. Shama opened his eyes and looked towards the distant east. Bits of flowing light flashed past. He still went. Sarah. At the peak of the sacred mountain, beneath the statue of the sun god, the sacred lord walked out and asked, Did you say something to him? Yes. In the 6th palace, Sarah said calmly. I told him where the heaven's heart flower is. He must have gone to look for it. Hearing this, the lord of the sanctuary frowned slightly but did not say anything. Shama's identity was different from the other Holy Region palace lords. In the entire Holy Region, everyone worshipped the sun god. Only Shama was born with a Buddha body. It was said that he could converse with the gods and Buddhas in the sky and knew many things that ordinary people did not. Because of Shama's identity, even he could not blame him too much. Sacred Lord, there is no need to worry. Even if towering sky peak is destroyed, someone will repair it in time. This sky will not collapse. In the 6th palace, Sarah said softly. At the extreme east, in front of towering sky peak, the battle between the two had reached a critical juncture. Bearing a blood feud, Nes Yao's battle strength was raised to the peak of his life. Golden flames surrounded his body, and the image of a gigantic 3-legged golden crow appeared behind him. With the support of the phenomenon, his battle strength increased by several folds. Divine weapons clashed, sparks flew in all directions. His heart was filled with vengeance, and his body was filled with guts. He had already disregarded his life and death. The sword in his hand was a divine weapon that could cut through the extremes. An extraordinary opponent with a world-shaking battle spirit. Ning Chen did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Sword intent rose around his body, and he similarly unleashed his full battle strength. Great Sun Forbidden Art. 3 points return to origin. With the forbidden art in hand, burning the sky and boiling the sea, Nes Yao's golden flame soared into the 9 heavens. Amidst the shocking scene, the golden crow's wings flapped, turning into a golden sun, and crashed towards the figure in front of him. Seeing this, Ning Chen's expression sank slightly. The tip of his sword turned, and countless streams of swords gathered, turning into a barrier in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the great sun forbidden art crashed into the barrier of thousands of swords. The enormous impact shook, and the white-clothed figure was immediately sent flying, crashing into towering Sky Peak. A terrifying loud noise resounded. Towering Sky Peak, which had been ravaged since the start of the battle, could no longer endure the powerful impact, and began to crumble inch by inch from the center of the mountain. Amidst the shocking scene, huge rocks fell like rain. A towering Sky Peak was destroyed, and the skies of the entire primal devil realm began to shake violently. Amen. The expressions of all the fourth-level practitioners in the primal devil realm changed. They looked towards the distant east, and their faces were filled with shock. Between the primal devil realm and the extreme east, devilish clouds rapidly spread. The sovereigns of devils released their origin arts, and with their supreme cultivation, they forcefully stabilized the shaking heaven and earth. At the extreme east, under the crumbling towering Sky Peak, a white-clothed figure flashed out. Her figure shifted amidst the rain of rocks falling from the sky, and in an instant, she once again appeared in front of the king. The devilish sword slashed down with a force of 1,000 kilograms. With the addition of 100 times the gravity, Yu Yao simply felt his body sinking, and he could not help but fall downwards. In the sky, Ning Chen stepped on a huge rock, and his figure flashed out like a sword, charging downwards together. While falling downwards, Yu Yao looked at the figure hurriedly rushing towards him. Without the slightest concern for his own safety, he let out a low shout, and his forbidden art appeared once again. Great Sun Forbidden Art. 3 crows returned to the sea. Pointing his finger over the sword, golden flames burned the skies. Behind Yu Yao, 3 golden crows appeared at the same time. With a forbidden art, it instantly destroyed a third of the king's foundation. Blood mist filled the air, and fused into the golden crows' bodies. In the next moment, the 3 golden crows charged out at the same time. Their destructive power was unstoppable. Sword art. 3 lights shined together. Forced to his limits, a sword appeared on his sword. Ning Chen executed his ultimate move, and 3 figures appeared. Human, deity, and devil performed their martial arts. 3 sword lights broke through the sky at the same time. The golden crows and the sword lights collided, and the aftermath was vast. The 2 of them bore the brunt of the impact, and were instantly sent flying. With a boom, Yu Yao's figure crashed onto the ground. Dust flew everywhere, covering the sky and the sun. In the sky, Ning Chen was also struck by the aftermath. His figure was sent flying, crashing towards a mountain in the distance. A few breaths later, amidst the intense tremors, the second heaven-raising mountain was knocked down by the Knowing Destiny mountain that was sent flying. In the distance, within the rapidly spreading devilish clouds, Devil Emperor First Kuan's expression changed once again. Looking at the gigantic hole in the sky, his heart was filled with rage. Is the sky going to collapse? At this moment, throughout the primal devil realm, even ordinary people could feel the world-shaking tremors. Their eyes looked towards the sky, and their faces were filled with shock. In the eastern sky, the heaven-raising mountain collapsed, and a gigantic hole appeared. Such a terrifying scene had never been seen before. In the battlefield, Ning Chen and Yu Yao looked towards the sky at the same time. A moment later, their expressions changed. Above the 9 heavens, thousands of meteors fell from the sky. Blazing flames coiled around them, and like a rain of fire, they rapidly fell. The scene of doomsday seemed to be a punishment from the heavens. Under countless shocked gazes, a rain of meteors appeared from the hole in the eastern sky, and fell into the mortal realm. Chapter 11-12. At the far eastern end, the heaven-raising peak was destroyed, and a meteor shower fell into the mortal realm. The scene of doomsday shook the world. Right below the meteor shower, Ning Chen and Yu Yao quickly regained their senses from the shock. Without any hesitation, their figures flew out, fleeing for their lives with all their might. Boom! In the next moment, countless meteors smashed down. An intense tremor resounded, and the earth sank, collapsing and collapsing. The sky in the east collapsed, and the balance of the entire primordial devil realm was destroyed. The various continents shook violently, and strange signs appeared at the same time. The sky is collapsing. On the various continents, practitioners looked towards the east, and their expressions turned solemn. At the far eastern end, within the meteor shower, two figures quickly charged out, one after another. 5,000 kilometers away, their figures stopped. They looked at each other, and could see the shock in each other's eyes. Ha! Right at this moment, a deep shout resounded from afar. Devilish clouds rapidly approached, and within the devilish clouds, a towering devilish figure stood tall. Devilish aura surged, blocking the gigantic hole in the sky. Outside the hole, the meteor shower continuously smashed down. Devil Emperor First Kuan received all of the attacks, and his devilish body grew. Using his supreme cultivation, he forcefully held up the tilting heaven and earth. Immediately search for heaven-raising rocks and repair the heaven-raising peak. Quickly! Devil Emperor First Kuan angrily said. Facing the Emperor's order, Ning Chen and Yu Yao did not hesitate, and respectfully accepted the order. The grudge between us will be settled in the future, Yu Yao coldly said. And then his figure flew out, rushing towards the distance. Ning Chen did not pay attention to him. He turned to look at the two collapsed heaven-raising peaks, and a thoughtful look flashed past his eyes. A moment later, he took a step, and flew in the opposite direction. Ha! Seeing the two leave, Devil Emperor First Kuan once again shouted. Devilish aura surged from his body, and with an unprecedented ability, he stood tall, supporting the collapsing heaven and earth. In the sky, a gigantic hole appeared. Meteors from the starry sky continuously fell, crashing into the barrier of devilish aura. From the north and south, two figures sped forward, dragging huge boulders that were the size of small mountains. They arrived at the collapsed heaven-raising peak, and with a step, they leapt up. With a boom, the boulders fell, and waves of dust rolled. The two figures once again turned back, and flew towards the distance. For a day and a night, the rulers used their bodies to mend the sky. Their cultivation bases were unparalleled, and a trace of fatigue appeared in their eyes. Under the duo's efforts, the collapsed heaven pillar peak gradually recovered. Countless boulders were piled up, reaching a height of 100 zhang, 1,000 zhang, 100 zhang, and so on. After 1 day and 1 night, the two heaven-upholding peaks had been repaired. The two of them were also on the verge of exhaustion, and no longer had the strength to continue fighting. Before his eyes, the towering mountain appeared once more. However, the cracks on the mountain were clearly visible, and it was no longer as complete as before. All of you back down. Demon Emperor Kuan said coldly. Yes. The two of them bowed in unison and quickly left. After the two left, the demonic qi around the first demon emperor continued to spread, merging into the two towering sky peaks. Gradually, the demonic cultivator's body began to petrify, and the cracks between the two towering sky peaks began to heal. 5,000 kilometers away, the two figures appeared. Carrying his sword, Nesyao left without saying another word. No matter how much they had enjoyed each other's company in the past, in the face of his father's death, all friendship had turned to smoke. The figure in the distance was dressed in a scarlet robe inlaid with gold. The sheath beyond sword aura was ice-cold, no longer as clear as before. Watching the former leave, Ning Chen retracted his gaze and lightly sighed in his heart. Some things, once done, would not be regretted. The grudge between him and Nesyao could no longer be resolved. Only fresh blood could wash it away. Behind him, the heaven-upholding peak stood tall between the heavens and the earth. Demonic qi lingered around it, and it was slowly and visibly recovering. 5,000 kilometers away, Ning Chen stood quietly. After a long while he turned and left. Though he did not find the heaven heart flower, being able to trap the first demon emperor here was still an unexpected gain. As long as the heaven-upholding peak was not repaired, the first demon emperor would not be able to leave. He would not waste such a precious opportunity. 2 days later, in the territory of the Stone Clan, Ning Chen walked over. Thousands of kilometers away. Divine Spiritual Mountain, the land of inheritance of the Stone Clan. Back then, Xian Jiuyo destroyed the mountain with a single palm strike, and even now, it had yet to fully recover. Outside the mountain, Ningchen stopped. Looking at the divine spiritual mountain in front of him, he spoke. Junior Ningchen requests an audience with Senior Stone Emperor. Humph. In the divine spiritual mountain, an angry snort sounded. The Stone Emperor opened his eyes and looked at the young figure outside the mountain. He coldly said, 13th Prince, have you come to the wrong place? My stone clan is simple, so I won't invite you in. Please leave. Ningchen revealed a smile and said, this junior is here on the orders of my master. Since Senior Stone Emperor is unwilling to meet me, this junior will not force you. This junior will pass on a message and leave. Senior Stone Emperor, the divine spiritual mountain is blocking the path of my Sky Devil Imperial clan to the east. You should make way. Impudent. In the divine spiritual mountain, an angry roar sounded. True energy surged out of the Stone Emperor's body, and his killing intent could not be concealed. Outside the divine spiritual mountain, Ningchen stood amidst the raging waves, but there was no fear on his face. He knew very well that the Stone Emperor did not dare to touch him now. I have passed on the message. This junior will take his leave. After saying that, Ningchen cupped his fists and bowed, then turned and left. In the divine spiritual mountain, the Stone Emperor could not suppress his anger, but he did not stop him. Half a month later, in the southern continent, Ningchen had been searching for several days. He did not hide his tracks at all. In the purple scale abyss, under the bottomless abyss, the auras of the scaled race's elites could be vaguely seen, waiting for the 13th Prince of the Sky Devil Imperial clan to arrive. However, after waiting for several days, the figure they were waiting for never showed up. Another half a month later, Ningchen left the southern continent and returned to the primordial demon area. Strange. In the purple scale abyss, many powerful figures were puzzled. That 13th prince had traveled all over the 5 continents and visited the 4 great imperial clans. Even the stone race, which he had an old grudge with, was no exception. Why did he only pass by the scaled race and not enter? In the primordial demon area, Ningchen had returned. After traveling all over the 5 regions, he was covered in dust and could not hide his exhaustion. Perhaps it was because his cultivation had been suppressed by the celestial gate, but Ningchen's face was less cold and more emotional. He's back. The moment Ji Ming stepped into the primordial demon area, the various imperial clans in the 3 imperial cities all received a secret report. For a moment, the silent 3 imperial cities once again surged with undercurrents. In the end, he still came back alive. In the Crown Prince's residence, Xianzhen looked at the secret report and sighed. If we don't get rid of this person, he will definitely become a huge threat. Elder brother, there are still a few days before he returns to the 3 imperial cities. Please make a decision quickly. The 5th prince said with a cold expression. We can't take any more risks. Xianzhen shook his head and said. After several failed assassinations, he was already prepared. With his current strength, unless we use the battle power of 3 or more kings, it will be very difficult to take his life. However, even I can't easily use the battle power of a king. If 9th Imperial Uncle finds out, there will be endless trouble. But the 5th prince looked anxious and was interrupted just as he was about to speak. Say no more. Even if 13th prince returns, it doesn't mean that we will definitely lose. Let's just wait and see. In the southwest of the primordial demon area, demonic aura filled the sky. A majestic palace collapsed, and a king's body that was thousands of feet tall suddenly exploded, dyeing the city red with blood. After taking back the city, Xian Luo looked into the distance with murderous intent. Now it was that brat's turn. Chapter 11-13. In the primordial demon region, Knowing Destiny returned and walked towards the 3rd royal city under everyone's gaze. 2 days later, a silhouette in plain clothes appeared in front of the 3 imperial city. Her body was covered in frost, and her white hair was dazzling. You're here. Xianqing stood quietly in front of the city. When he saw the newcomer, he immediately went to welcome him. 13th brother, welcome back. Xianqing looked at the young man in front of him and smiled. 3rd royal brother, please welcome me personally. I'm sorry, Ningchen said softly. We're brothers. It's my duty, Xianqing replied with a smile. In the ninth prince's estate, Xianke was quietly drinking wine. At this time, outside the hall, a guard quickly walked in and said respectfully, "Reporting to your highness, the 13th prince is about to return to the city. His highness, the third prince, has personally gone to welcome him." "Got it. You may leave," Xianke said indifferently. "Yes." The guard accepted the order, bowed and left. In the palace, Xianke put down the wine cup in his hand and looked at the wind and clouds outside the palace. Coldness flashed in his eyes. With the 13th prince back, there would be a new wave in the imperial city. This time, who would be the pitiful sacrifice? In the city, the two crown princes walked side by side. The forbidden army cleared the way and the commoners all moved aside. "Third royal brother, I'm going to see master first. Let's part here." After walking for 10 miles, Ningchen stopped and looked at the person beside him. Xianqing nodded and said, "If there's a chance, I'll visit you again." "You're welcome." Ningchen cupped his fists and walked towards the 9th Underworld King Palace without saying anything. Seeing Ningchen leave, Xianqing looked away and walked to the other side. He believed that with sincerity, the 13th prince would eventually be used by him and become the sharpest sword in his hand. In the 9th Underworld King Palace, Ningchen walked over. In front of the palace, the guard saw him and immediately knelt down. "Greetings, your highness." "No need for formalities," Ningchen said calmly. "No need to report. I can go in myself." "Yes." The two guards stood up and made way for him. Ningchen strode into the mansion and headed towards the imperial hall. In the 9th Underworld King Palace, Ningchen walked in and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, master. I'm back." As he spoke, the space in front of the throne shook. Demonic chi curled up, and a domineering figure walked out. His vitality was exuberant, and he was like a divine furnace. Ningchen nodded and said, "I'm going out for a walk to broaden my horizons." "You've caused quite a commotion while you were gone." Xianjuyo looked at the disciples in the hall and asked, "Did you encounter any danger along the way?" "It's not dangerous, but it's a little troublesome," Ningchen said calmly, "but it's all settled now. You have caused a lot of trouble in the easternmost region. The 3 demon emperors will not let this go. You have to be mentally prepared," Xianjuyo said seriously. "Disciple understands." Ningchen nodded and said, "I was also schemed against and had no choice but to act to protect myself. I didn't expect that it would cause such a huge disaster." He had never heard of the towering sky peak's secret before. It could be seen that even in the celestial devil imperial family, very few people knew about it. This time, the towering sky peak was destroyed and Dongfang Tian was broken. This secret was known to the world, and the demon emperor First Kuan would definitely be furious. However, as he said, he was schemed against and the fault was not his. Even if the demon emperor First Kuan wanted to blame him, some people in the 3 imperial cities would not be able to get away with it. The towering sky peak will take some time to repair. Before the demon emperor First Kuan returns, no one will mention this again. You should stay in the imperial city and try not to go out, Xianjuyo said. Yes. Ningchen accepted the order. All right, I have nothing else to do here. You should go back and rest as soon as possible, Xianjuyo said calmly. Disciple will take his leave. Ningchen bowed respectfully again, and then turned to leave. At the same time, on the central altar of the sorcerer tribe's sanctuary, Emperor Go appeared. He formed a seal with his hands, and in an instant, the wind and clouds surged in the sky. Beside him, Tian Xian stood quietly with a tinge of nervousness. Emperor Go showed his imperial power. In the sky, the sound of wind and thunder resounded, and a blurry and illusory scene appeared in the wind and thunder, disappearing in an instant. After a long while, the sound of wind and thunder stopped. Emperor Go retracted his aura, and exhaustion flashed in his eyes. Master! Tian Xian opened his mouth and said, Did you see something? The sorcerer tribe is going to face a great calamity. Emperor Go sighed softly. When Tian Xian heard this, he was shocked. Why? The demon emperor First Kuran is trapped in the easternmost land, and the 13th prince has promised to hold back the demon emperor of the abyss. The current situation should be more advantageous for us. It's hard to predict. Perhaps I have missed something, Emperor Go said solemnly. However, no matter what, the sorcerer tribe must send out their troops as soon as possible. The 13th prince is right. Only by fighting against the heavens can we have a chance. Otherwise, we can only wait for death. I have already given Master's order to the 12 sorcerer empresses. As long as Master gives the order, they can send out their troops at any time, Tian Xian said seriously. Emperor Go nodded and looked at the primordial demon area in the distance. His expression gradually turned cold. Internal and external problems. Now that there are external problems, let's see when the internal problems will appear. In the 13th prince's residence in the 3rd imperial city, Ningchen had returned. Shiyu and Shiqing had already received the news and were waiting for him at the residence. Your Highness. In front of them, the white-haired figure was so familiar. Shiyu and Shiqing quickly stepped forward and bowed with joy. No need to be so polite, Ningchen said with a smile. After so many days, seeing the two girls again made him feel much closer. 13th brother. At this moment, a warm voice sounded outside the residence. As soon as the voice sounded, a slightly sinister face appeared in front of the residence. It was the 9th prince, who had previously sided with the 7th prince. Ningchen turned around and smiled when he saw the person who had come. 9th brother. 13th brother, you have been away for so long. You have kept me waiting, Xiankei said with a smile. I had to leave because of some personal matters. Sorry. Ningchen said calmly, but now that the matter has been resolved I am back. Xiankei heard this and narrowed his eyes. Compared to when he had left, his 13th brother seemed a little different. Before this, he felt that his 13th brother was always hiding his sharpness. But now, his 13th brother was like a sword that was about to be unsheathed, sharp and threatening. At the same time, in the southwest of the primordial demon area, Xian Luo left the royal city and headed east. Prince, the royal family is deep. Are you really going? An old figure asked worriedly. He is there. How can I not go? Xian Luo spoke coldly, and then he strode off into the distance. At the same time, in the purple scale abyss, an unprecedented tremor sounded. At the bottom of the abyss, the scale emperor opened his eyes and murderous intent surged. Outside the abyss, Jinlin felt it. She was shocked and said, Grandfather, what happened? Something happened to your brother, the scale emperor said in a low voice. Jinlin was shocked and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Her brother's talent and strength were better than hers. How could the heavens beyond Earth's human tribe threaten her brother? What's more, her father was there. The scale emperor's face was gloomy. Now the Queen Mother's seal was getting stronger and stronger. Even sending messages had become difficult. If they did not break the seal now and the seal was completely repaired, their years of planning would go to waste. The news from the heavens beyond Earth was that although they had obtained the Western King's hairpin, Diming Tian had sacrificed his life for it. What was worse was that the Western King's hairpin's immortal power was severely depleted, and was far from enough to break the seal left behind by the Queen Mother. If they wanted to break the Queen Mother's seal, they had to find a way to replenish the Western King's hairpin with immortal power. However, the 4 major celestial realms had been destroyed for a long time. The Western King's hairpin could not be used again, even if they waited another 100 years. After thinking for a long time, the Scale Emperor's eyes suddenly flashed. He said, Jinlin, Grandfather. Jinlin replied respectfully. I will do my best to send you out of the primordial demon area. Take the method to set up the life sacrifice formation with you and give it to your father. Remember, this formation is very important. You must personally hand the method to your father, the Scale Emperor said in a low voice. Yes, Jinlin accepted the order. In the heavens beyond Earth, on a peak in an unknown space, an old man stood quietly, looking down at the world. Suddenly his eyes flashed. The power of an emperor. In the Red Phoenix galaxy, in the endless white fog, a powerful force spread out, forcibly breaking the seal of the 2 realms that was constantly repairing. In the next moment, a woman surrounded by golden light walked out. Without any hesitation, She rushed toward the Ziwei galaxy. A member of the Scale clan? On the peak, beside the old man, Peacock frowned and said, "This woman's identity is not simple." The old man said with a serious expression, "Now that the passage between the two realms is getting harder and harder to pass, the Emperor of the Primordial Demon area is willing to expend his energy to send her off personally. This woman must be here with an extremely important mission. If that's the case, just get rid of her." With that, Peacock turned her wheelchair and went down the mountain. "You want to do it yourself?" the old man asked. "It's time for me to do something for the human race," Peacock replied and continued down the mountain. As soon as Peacock left, a young man in white came from the peak. He looked at the old man in front of him and asked in confusion, "Master, why did you allow Peacock to go down the mountain by herself?" "Peacock is a goddess." The old man looked into the distance, his eyes full of vicissitudes. He said softly, "If a goddess doesn't enter the mortal world, how can she understand the pain of the world? She always stands here and watches the world. Although she can see a lot, she can't experience it herself." "But the purity of a goddess can't be tainted," young Master Xiaobai said worriedly. "That master's successor's hands are already stained with blood. If Peacock is tainted by the mortal world, how can the immortal state ensure fairness in the future? The immortal state and the demon state only differ by one word. Trust them," the old man said with a hoarse voice. "Even if you don't trust that young man, you must trust Peacock. Although the world is filthy, there are still people who stick to their hearts." In the bustling starry sky, in front of the Ziwei galaxy, a golden light sped toward it. The Scale Clan royal princess came with the life sacrifice technique to find the king of the Scale Clan. "The road ahead is blocked. Please leave your life here." At that moment, above the starry sky, Peacock appeared in the divine light and blocked the Scale Clan royal princess path. Chapter 11:14. Primordial Demon Domain, 3rd Imperial City. The bright moon shone high in the sky. Under the moon, a white-robed figure danced with a sword, and the world was silent. There was no wind, no electric charge, no stormy waves. After losing his cultivation, the sword had returned to its original state. Every move was simple, without the slightest flourish. Not far away, Shiyu and Shiqing looked at the figure dancing in front of them, and gradually lost their minds. His Highness is so powerful. After a long time, Shiqing came back to her senses and exclaimed, "You can understand it?" Shiyu asked curiously. "I can't." Shiqing shook her head decisively and said, "Then how do you know that His Highness is powerful?" Shiyu said helplessly, "I just can't understand it. That's why I think His Highness is powerful." Shiqing said matter-of-factly. Shiyu couldn't help but laugh when she heard that, not knowing what to say. Just as the two women were talking, suddenly, a dark red figure fell from the sky. The powerful palm force was earth-shattering. In the residence, Ningchen sensed it. Sword chi surged out from his body and soared into the sky. The rumbling sound resounded throughout the Crown Prince's residence. The demonic aura that reappeared was so familiar that it made people want to get rid of it immediately. Xianluo. Looking at the person who came, Ningchen's expression turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Kid, long time no see." Xianluo said indifferently, "Long time no see." As soon as the voice fell, the white-robed figure moved, showing no mercy, and the sword edge was about to kill. Good. Xianluo's face was filled with madness. With a roar, demonic aura surged out, and demonic aura soared into the sky. The divine sword shook the demonic aura, and the sharp sword edge approached inch by inch, stopping an inch away from the heart. Invisible sword. Ningchen pointed at the sword edge, and the sword edge moved even closer. The rapidly spinning sword aura gathered from all directions, trying to break the demonic cultivator's protective Zhen Yuan. "I haven't seen you for many years, and your sword has become sharper." Xianluo looked at the young figure in front of him and said coldly, "Unfortunately, no matter how many years have passed, you're still the same as before, a stray dog." With a loud bang, demonic aura surged, shaking the battle. Xianluo turned his palm, and thousands of demons appeared, roaring into the sky. Back down. Ning Chen formed a sword with his fingers. Sword chi gushed out, knocking the two women out of the battle. Then he stomped his foot. In an instant, the entire crown prince's palace was enveloped by the light of restrictive spells, sealing the entire space. With the space sealed, Ning Chen no longer had any worries. He spun his sword and slashed the demon with the divine sword. The rapidly moving shadow slashed apart the 10,000 demonic phantoms. The sword intent was fast, accurate, and concentrated. In the God-forbidden space, the 10,000 demonic phantoms collapsed. Bai Yi turned around, and a sword pierced through the air. Clang! The divine sword and the demonic palm clashed. Demonic waves surged. Xian Luo raised his hand to grab the moon demon divine weapon. He clenched his left fist and punched out heavily. Ning Chen stepped forwards, evading the fist force. 100 meters away, he clenched his right hand into a fist as his astral soul manifested. The tip of his blood-red sword was extremely sharp. Xian Luo frowned. He condensed his fist and punched at the former. Xian Luo punched at the former. With a loud bang, the two forces collided. The white-clothed figure retreated half a step. She borrowed the momentum to leap forward, her sword turning in a single direction. Nirvana. Nirvana reappeared. 10,000 swords pierced through the air, crisscrossing with each other. A moment later, 10,000 swords pierced through the air, slashing towards the demon. Indestructible protection. 10,000 swords attacked. Xian Luo shouted. A strange light rose from his body, blocking the 10,000 swords. Rumbling sounds echoed incessantly. In front of the indestructible protection, 10,000 swords would not be able to break through it. At this moment in the air, the white-clothed figure's sword light appeared again. The world-shaking power shook the God-forbidden space. Sword. 12. With a shout of 12 swords, around Ning Chen, 10,000 swords gathered rapidly. Instantly, a dazzling sword surrounded Ning Chen and rose into the air. A moment later, Bai Yi moved and 12 swords appeared. A sword pierced through Ning Chen's body. The demonic protection dissipated instantly. The sword that was 3 inches deep into Ning Chen's body brought out a fountain of blood. After 100 years, the knowing destiny sword was once again stained with the blood of the demon. Back off. Anger rose in his heart. Xian Luo clenched his fist and punched out, landing on Ning Chen's chest. Blood splashed out, and Ning Chen retreated a few steps. He was injured, but the murderous intent in his eyes did not decrease at all. He moved his sword, and the tip of the sword pressed forward. After 100 years, is this all you have grown up to? Xian Luo had a mocking expression. Demonic qi surged from his body, and the royal clan's special technique surged out. Demonic flames spread out with unparalleled power. Xian Luo punched out, shaking heaven and earth. As the demonic flames attacked, Ning Chen waved his sword to block the demonic power. His left hand grasped the air. In the distance, the moon demon divine artifact flew over. He slashed out, and the sword shook the 9 provinces. With a rumble, the sword chi cut down the demon. In the battle, demonic chi and sword chi shook. The surging power kept attacking the God-forbidden space. Millions of runes collapsed, and the space became unstable, shaking violently. In the God-forbidden space, the two looked at each other with hatred. They were destined to be enemies, and they would not stop until they died. Drops of blood fell, dyeing the sword and the demonic armor red. After 100 years, the demon was stronger, and the swordsman was not the same as before. Where is the power you took from me? Why don't you use it? Xian Luo looked at the person in front of him, and said coldly, "The sword in my hand is enough to deal with you." With a deep shout, Ning Chen's eyes shone brightly. The sword chi rushed to his head. In an instant, his white hair danced wildly, and the emperor reappeared. The sword realm spread out, stabilizing the God-forbidden space. In the sword realm, a figure in plain clothes stood in the air. His white hair danced, and sword chi could be vaguely seen around him. He was like a divine king who had descended. Seeing this, Xian Luo's expression turned serious. He stomped his feet, and lightning surged around him. The extreme demonic technique appeared for the first time. Sword Emperor. He formed a sword with his fingers. In the sword realm, The red sword light surged like waves. In an instant, it gathered crazily and entered the swordsman's body. Thunder God! Xianluo shouted angrily. Black lightning broke through the sky, and a huge demonic shadow appeared. The Emperor of Swords and the Thunder God of Demons. The two techniques collided, and the result was decided immediately. Just as Ji Ming and Xianluo were fighting to the death, the battle in the Ziwei Galaxy also started. The five-colored divine light appeared, and the peacock descended. Seeing the person who came, Jinlin looked serious. Her golden scales shone with golden light, and she activated her genuine qi to the extreme. Lady, please leave your life. The cold and emotionless words were unusually harsh. The peacock raised her hand, and the five-colored divine light broke through the sky. The power was shocking and unparalleled. Every single move he executed possessed might that shook the heavens, and the torrent of divine light seemed all-powerful. Everywhere it passed, expanse after expanse of space collapsed. Jinlin focused and turned her palm to block the attack. Her body shone with golden light. She relied on the absolute defense of the Scaled clan to take the five-colored divine light head-on. In the first exchange, the goddess suppressed the demon. The five-colored divine light broke through the demon vitality and hit the armor of the Scaled clan directly. But there was a muffled groan, and the five-colored divine light shook violently. Jinlin took a few steps back, and the corner of her mouth was red. In just one move, the Scaled clan queen was injured. Even with the armor of the Scaled clan, it was difficult to block the power of the five-colored divine light. In the starry sky, the peacock looked at the shining golden scales of the lady in front of her. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Impressive defensive power. On the opposite side, Jinlin raised her hand to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her expression was unusually serious. When did the heavens beyond heaven have such a terrifying powerhouse? Knowing that a prolonged battle was unfavorable, Jinlin did not delay any longer. She took a step forward and rushed forward. Close at hand, her delicate hand turned into a sharp blade. Jinlin condensed her demon vitality, and dark force surrounded her as she attacked with all her might. On the wheelchair, the peacock did not dodge. Her delicate hand met the attack head-on. Boom! The second exchange between the two powerhouses was earth-shattering. Foundation and cultivation collided head-on, leaving no room for negotiation. In the turbulent aftermath, Jinlin took a few steps back again. Her delicate hand was stained red. She was at a disadvantage again. It was an unbelievable situation. Facing an opponent of the same generation, the Scaled clan's god's favored daughter was completely suppressed. The demon is a calamity. The peacock will not tolerate it. She slapped her palm out, and the divine light shone. After two moves, the peacock turned from defense to offense and counterattacked strongly. The heaven-shattering move was earth-shattering. The five-colored divine light destroyed heaven and earth, and space and time collapsed. The five-colored divine light arrived. Jinlin crossed her arms in front of her to block the divine power. With a muffled groan, Jinlin flew out and her golden scales were stained red. In front of the five-colored divine light, it was difficult for any technique to display its power. The spirituality of the Scaled clan's divine armor was constantly eroded, and it gradually turned into ordinary scales. In just a few exchanges, the battle situation was clear. The opponent was far more powerful than she had imagined. This was the toughest battle of the Scaled clan's favored daughter's life. Overturning rain and overturning waves. In order to seize the opportunity to win, Jinlin did not hesitate anymore. She opened and closed her hands, and the raging waves swept across. The Scaled clan's ultimate move was used. The raging waves reached thousands of miles away. The indescribable terrifying power swallowed the heaven and earth, and shook the stars. In front of her, the raging waves attacked, but the peacock was as still as a mountain. The five-colored divine light rose from her body, and the giant peacock's shadow appeared behind her. The moment the peacock opened its tail, a dazzling divine light bloomed. The raging waves collided with the divine light. In an instant, a shocking scene occurred. Under the five-colored divine light, all techniques withered. The raging waves quickly dissipated and disappeared without a trace. The shocking scene was unbelievable. Jean Lin could not hide the shock in her eyes. For a moment, she could not believe what she had seen. In a moment of absent-mindedness, the divine light spread and sent the Scaled Clan's queen flying. Crack! The ear-piercing sound of scales cracking was so clear. Jean Lin's body flew 100 feet away. 100 feet away. She staggered and stabilized her body. She vomited a mouthful of blood, staining her battle clothes red. The 3 scales on her chest cracked inch by inch, barely blocking the fatal palm. The Scaled Clan's absolute defense is well-deserved. The peacock turned her wheelchair forward and said coldly, "Who are you?" Jean Lin looked at the woman in front of her and staggered forward. "Immortal state peacock," the peacock said lightly. "Immortal state goddess." Hearing the word peacock, Jean Lin was shocked. She was actually an immortal state person. After the ancient war, the immortal state had not been destroyed? "Now that you know my identity, can you go on your way in peace?" As she spoke, the peacock opened and closed her hands. Suddenly, the 5-colored divine light illuminated the world. "Even if I die, I'll drag you to hell with me." Knowing that she could not escape this calamity, Jean Lin's eyes flashed with determination. She unleashed all her demon vitality and turned into a black dragon, spiraling into the 9 heavens. The next moment, the 2 extremes collided. The black dragon screamed, and was quickly swallowed by the 5-colored divine light. There was not a single ripple. Poof! The force of the palm hit her and shattered her scales. Jean Lin's body flew out and crashed into a withered star. It was the same ending. After a year, the blood of the 2 royal bloodlines of the Scaled Clan dyed the Ziwei Galaxy. Chapter 11:15. It was a life-and-death battle. The ultimate moves of the swordsman and the demonic cultivator were unleashed. Their destructive power frightened both humans and gods. The Sword Emperor and the God of Thunder, humans and demons could not coexist. They clashed in the God restriction. It was a shocking scene. The sword realm crumbled inch by inch. Countless sword lights disappeared. At the same time, the demonic aura dissipated. Arg! 2 groans sounded. Blood splattered everywhere. Ji Ming and Xian Luo were both sent flying by the shockwave. Both sides were injured. It was a draw. No one had the upper hand. The blood-stained divine sword made a piercing sound. Demonic aura surged around Ningchen. The demonic body that had been hidden for a long time appeared and joined the battle. The 2 bodies appeared at the same time. The battle changed again. Just as the battle was about to start, a silver spear light broke through the sky and crashed into the God restriction. The God restriction could not withstand the shocking power. Cracks appeared, and it was about to collapse. Ningchen felt it. His eyes dimmed. He retracted his aura and the demonic body returned to his body. 13th brother, are you in trouble? As he spoke, the demonic weapon broke the God restriction. The silver spear stabbed into the ground. The spear was surrounded by silver light. Xiaoyin, seeing the silver spear vibrating on the ground, Ningchen's expression turned serious. It was the demonic weapon Xiaoyin. The Crown Prince finally made a move. Ningchen shifted his gaze to the Crown Prince's palace in the distance. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He had always been on guard against this Crown Prince. Among all the princes of the Sky Devil imperial family, the Crown Prince's cultivation and status were far above the other princes. The Crown Prince's demonic weapon was called Xiaoyin. It was a rare weapon even in the primordial demon realm. It's just a small matter. You don't have to worry about it. Ningchen bowed in the direction of the Crown Prince's residence. Is that so? Xianzhen's voice sounded in the sky. 13th brother, are you sure this person is not an assassin? He is not. Ningchen glanced at Xian Luo, who was not far away, and replied calmly. An icy cold smile appeared on the corners of Xian Luo's mouth. Needless to say, this kid's reaction was really not bad. Anyone in the world could be called an assassin, and only this young man before him couldn't. In Primordial Devil region, he was the only one who knew the true identity of the young man before him. Once his identity was exposed, even Xian Jioya would not be able to save his life. The spiritual leader of the inner realm, and the great benefactor of the human race in the outer realm. No matter what his identity was, It was enough for him to die several times over. That's good. Xianzhen's voice reverberated in the air. Stranger, I admire you. With that, the Shaoyin divine spear turned into a silver light and flew towards the Crown Prince's residence. After this brief interlude, the battle could no longer continue. Xian Luo looked at the young man in front of him and sneered. What a pity that I couldn't kill you. This person's identity would be his protective talisman. Even the Netherworld Demon Emperor wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Same to you, Ningchen said coldly. Today's battle ends here. I look forward to another battle of life and death. Xian Luo spoke indifferently, and then he turned around and left. In the Crown Prince's residence, Xianzhen stood quietly in front of the palace, looking at the 13th Crown Prince's residence in the distance. It seemed that someone who could counter the 13th Crown Prince had appeared. In the 13th Crown Prince's residence, Ningchen waved his hand and kept the two divine weapons. Xian Luo's appearance was out of his expectations. The Crown Prince's appearance had prevented him from getting rid of Xian Luo in time, which was troublesome. His identity couldn't be exposed. At least he couldn't before he achieved his goal. Today Xian Luo had left alive. In the future, he would definitely bring him a lot of trouble. He had to find a chance to get rid of him. However, how could he kill him in one strike without giving Xian Luo any chance to counterattack? Not far away, Shi Yu and Shiqing looked at the Crown Prince, who was deep in thought. They exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with worry. This was the first time they had seen the Crown Prince like this. Could it be that the Crown Prince had encountered something difficult to solve? The night gradually passed and dawn arrived. The first rays of the morning sun shone in the east, dispelling the cold darkness. In the Crown Prince's residence, Xian Luo walked over. In front of the palace, Xianzhen waited quietly. The Lord of the Southwest King's territory, Xian Luo, greets the Crown Prince. Xian Luo entered the residence and bowed respectfully. Xian Luo. Xianzhen murmured softly. After a while he smiled and said, You're not bad. Thank you, Crown Prince. Xian Luo stood up and smiled. Chance. Xianzhen said. I will give you the chance you want. However, you can't fail again next time. Yes. Xian Luo replied calmly. This kid has lost his cultivation. If there's a chance, I will personally send him to the west. In the 13th Crown Prince's residence, Ningchen walked out of the residence and headed towards the 3rd Crown Prince's residence. In the 3rd Crown Prince's residence, Xianqing heard the secret report from his spy. His eyes flashed with joy and suspicion. Last night, someone tried to assassinate the 13th Crown Prince. Not only did the Crown Prince interfere, but the assassin also walked out of the 13th Crown Prince's residence alive. This was really strange. Your Highness, the 13th Crown Prince requests an audience. A guard quickly walked over and said respectfully, Invite him in. Xianqing came back to his senses and said, Yes. The guard accepted the order and turned to leave. Not long after, a white-clothed figure walked over and bowed politely. Greetings, third brother. Xianqing went forward and helped the young man up. He smiled and said, 13th brother, you don't have to be so polite. Third brother. Ningchen looked at the 3rd Crown Prince and said seriously, I'm here to borrow troops from you. I hope you can agree to it. Oh. Xianqing was surprised when he heard this and said, 13th brother, why do you want to borrow troops? To get rid of Xian Luo. Ningchen said in a deep voice, I'm sure you've heard about this. My power came from devouring half of a royal heavenly demon. This demon is Xian Luo. Last night, Xian Luo came to seek revenge. At the critical moment, the Crown Prince intervened and saved Xian Luo's life. Now, Xian Luo might have sided with the Crown Prince to protect himself. I have no choice but to come and ask for help from you. I hope you can help me get rid of this problem. Xianqing frowned when he heard this and said, The Crown Prince personally took action? If so, it's really troublesome. Ningchen sighed and said, If you can help me, I'll be very grateful. Xianqing calmed himself down and looked at the person in front of him with a smile. I'll do my best to help you. However, this demon must have an extraordinary cultivation to be able to survive in your hands. Middle stage king realm, or even stronger, Ningchen said calmly. Xian Luo must have held back in the battle last night. If his life was threatened, it might be more difficult to deal with him. So, to get rid of this demon, we need at least one middle-stage king realm or one middle-stage king realm cultivator. Xianqing looked serious and said, "It's not easy. Even I can't easily mobilize those above the king realm. It's a bit troublesome." "Is it very difficult?" Ningchen sighed again and said, "If it's difficult, then forget it. You can think of another way." 13th brother, you're treating me as an outsider. Xianqing looked unhappy and said, "Even if it's troublesome, as long as it's your problem, I'll find a way to help you." "Then I'll thank you in advance, third brother." Ningchen cupped his fists and bowed. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Everything had its pros and cons. Xian Luo's appearance would indeed bring him a lot of trouble. However, if he could make the Three Royal City even more chaotic, it would be worth it even if it was a little troublesome. In the Crown Prince's palace, Xian Luo stood up and looked into the distance. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. At the same time, in the third Crown Prince's palace, Ningchen also stood up and looked at the Crown Prince's palace. He didn't hide the coldness in his eyes at all. They looked at each other from hundreds of miles away. Killing intent filled their eyes. From the inner world to the outer world, and then to the primitive demon realm, the two who were at odds with each other fought again. This time, they wouldn't stop until one of them died. In the Ziwei star zone after the shocking battle, it was bleak. In the distance, on a withered star, the ground was dyed red with blood. It was a desolate scene. Her scales were shattered and her meridians were broken. The Scale Clan Crown Princess coughed violently. Her life source was gradually draining away. Was this the feeling of death? Jean Linger looked at the primitive demon realm in the distance. Her dim eyes flashed with regret. Unfortunately, she would never be able to return. In the starry sky, the peacock descended from the sky. Her body bloomed with 5-colored divine light. The goddess of the immortal realm had an inviolable aura. "Do you have any last words?" The peacock raised her hand. Divine light illuminated the world. She was decisive and merciless. "You can't save this world." The hatred in her last words could not be concealed. Golden light shone around Jean Linger. Her demonic chi flowed in reverse and exploded. Red dust self-detonated, its might shaking the heavens and the earth. The entire withered star collapsed rapidly, and the chaotic world pierced through the sky. The peacock frowned. 5-colored divine light protected her body, blocking the explosion of the Scale Clan Crown Princess. After a long time, the aftershock dissipated. The peacock spread out her divine sense and scanned the starry sky. She didn't find anything unusual. She turned her wheelchair and left. Half a day later, demonic clouds filled the sky and rushed over. Above the withered star, the Scale King appeared. He looked at the blood-stained rocks in the starry sky. He couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. "Linger." The Scale King's body trembled violently. He couldn't believe this tragic scene. He had lost his most beloved children. Even though he was a king, he couldn't accept it. "Father." At this moment, spots of light gathered in the starry sky. An illusory figure appeared. It was so weak that it seemed like it would disappear at any time. "Linger." The Scaled King revealed a sorrowful expression. "Who killed you?" "The goddess of the immortal realm, Peacock." Jean Linger replied. Her remnant soul was faintly discernible. She could no longer hold on. "Father, I have delivered the life sacrifice formation. I have completed grandfather's mission." Jean Linger's soul turned into starlight and flew toward the king in front. The starlight entered his body. The method of the life sacrifice formation was reflected in his divine sense. The Scale King's heart was filled with grief. Immortal realm, human. The Scale King clenched his fists. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He would avenge Linger and Linger with the blood of the entire human race. Chapter 11:16. Undercurrents were surging in the 3 imperial cities. After Xi Ming's return, the situation became even more complicated. The competition between the 2 princes was getting more and more intense. The 7th prince died in Dragon Emperor Mountain, and the 3 princes were out of balance. The conflict between the 1st and 3rd princes was on the table, forcing all the forces in the imperial city to pick a side as soon as possible. The three demon emperors had never cared about the competition between the princes. As long as they didn't do anything that went against the fundamental interests of the imperial family, whoever could win the throne would depend on their own ability. Nobody had imagined that Ji Ming would become the fourth crown prince of the royal family. What was more unexpected was that the seventh crown prince had an accident in Dragon Emperor Mountain, which directly led to the fierceness of the competition for the throne. The choice of the 13th crown prince who was not qualified to inherit the throne would directly influence the final result of the competition. After returning for several years, all the members of the imperial family had seen how powerful the 9th Serenity Demon Emperor was. He was even comparable to the head of the three demon emperors, the first Kunyi Demon Emperor. As the only disciple of the 9th Serenity Demon Emperor, the 13th prince's status became very important. In front of the imperial palace of the third prince's residence, Xianqing and White stood quietly thinking. Today, the 13th prince came to borrow his troops, which was a rare opportunity for him. However, Xian Luo's identity was also unusual. According to the spy he sent, Xian Luo was now the lord of the Southwest King's territory. His strength was unfathomable, and even the previous Southwest King was defeated by him. It was said that the previous Southwest King was already in the late stage of the King realm. Xian Luo could defeat him. Either he was more powerful, or he had a trump card that no one knew about. No matter what the reason was, Xian Luo wouldn't be easy to deal with. If he wanted to help the 13th prince get rid of him, he would have to use his hidden strength. Whether it was worth exposing his trump card or not, he had to seriously consider it. The night gradually darkened. In the 13th prince's residence, Ningchen was sitting in the main hall, carefully wiping the black saber in his hand against the light. Not far away, Shiyu and Shiqing saw what he was doing and felt a chill in their hearts. They knew that the prince's sword cultivation was extraordinary. Even those so-called favored ones couldn't reach him. However, it was their first time seeing the prince use a saber. Outside the hall, the night was getting darker. The entire imperial city was completely dark. It was a dark and windy night. Inside the hall, Ningchen stood up and walked out with Kuang-gu in his hand. "Your Highness," Shiqing said worriedly. "Be careful." Ningchen turned around and smiled. "It's just a small matter. If you're tired, you can rest. There's no need to wait here." After he finished speaking, Ningchen continued walking forward. Not long after, he disappeared into the night. In the palace, Shiyu and Shiqing looked at each other, unable to hide their worry. In the three royal city, dark clouds gradually covered the cold moon, making the night seem even darker. Suddenly, with a rumbling sound, a bolt of lightning tore through the night sky, illuminating the royal city. On the street, a plain-clothed figure held a black saber. He did not cover his face or change his clothes as he walked toward the northwest of the royal city. The lights in the Marquis Qingyuan manor were lit up. Marquis Qingyuan was once one of the imperial family's senior elders. Now that he was old, his qi and blood were withered, and he was enjoying the rest of his life in his manor. Although Marquis Qingyuan Fu was no longer as glorious as it was in the past, the current Marquis Qingyuan had an extremely high seniority and had an extremely special position in the imperial family. As early as 100 years ago, Marquis Qingyuan Fu had already clearly stated that they stood on the eldest crown prince's side. Everyone in three imperial cities knew this. Amidst the muffled sounds of thunder, a plain-clothed figure strode over in front of Marquis Qingyuan Fu. Her entire body was filled with killing intent that was sharp and bone-piercing. "Who are you?" In front of Marquis Qingyuan Fu, two imperial guards saw the approaching person and blocked the path. However, just as the words fell, a black saber light cut through the darkness, bringing out a striking scene of residual red. Before they could shout, the plain-clothed figure walked past. Behind him, two figures fell to the ground with a thud. Blood overflowed and dyed the ground red. Ningchen walked into Marquis Qingyuan Fu and turned to close the door. Rumble. Thunder descended and the night sky brightened. Before the manor door closed, the lightning reflected a pair of ice-cold eyes, like an azura. The gentleness of the past could no longer be seen. The manor door closed and the figure that flashed by was like a death god. In the manor, The patrolling Imperial guards did not have time to react. They only felt a sweet taste in their mouth and their consciousness quickly blurred. Above the ninth heaven, dark clouds rolled. The night covered all the darkness and evil, making it difficult for people to see clearly. Under the night sky, the extremely fast saber brought out a waterfall of dazzling blood. From the front hall to the backyard, wherever it went, blood flowed like a river. Ah! Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream resounded in Marquis Fu. The lantern in a young woman's hand fell. Looking at the corpses in front of her, her face was filled with fear. Before she could speak again, the plain-clothed figure behind her swept past and directly knocked her unconscious. Who is it? The woman's scream attracted the attention of even more Imperial guards. A large group of Imperial guards quickly rushed over. However, while the person was fast, the saber was faster. The plain-clothed figure swept past and in a flash, the black saber slit the throat. Blood spurted out, and the last thing that the eyes saw was the residual red. Impudent! At this moment, an old roar came from the depths of Marquis Fu. The aura of a king swept out with earth-shattering might. Ningchen stopped and turned around. Looking at the powerful aura in front of him, coldness flashed in his eyes. He took a step forward and instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in the depths of Marquis Fu. The plain-clothed figure appeared in the ice-cold forbidden ground. His hands formed seals, and the yellow spring restriction was activated. The divine restriction sealed the battle and cut off all paths of retreat. 13th Prince, it's you. Shock flashed in Marquis Yuan's eyes when he saw the white-haired youth before him. A brief moment later, his killing intent erupted. Without saying anything, Ningchen moved and the black saber slashed down mercilessly. Seeing this, Marquis Yuan clenched his left hand and a demonic saber appeared. The two sabers clashed. Saber against saber, fast against strong, they clashed head-on. The difference in cultivation was made up for by speed. Ningchen moved and his saber was as fast as lightning. It turns out that you have such extraordinary attainments in the saber. 13th Prince, what are you planning to do by hiding so deeply? Marquis Yuan couldn't hide his anger after exchanging several moves. The King of Hell will answer your question in the Yellow Spring. Ningchen stepped forward and dodged the demonic saber. He instantly appeared behind Marquis Yuan and punched at his back. Arg! With a groan, Marquis Yuan took a few steps forward before he turned around and swung his saber. Marquis Yuan, you're old. Before Marquis Yuan finished speaking, he appeared before Marquis Yuan and punched at Marquis Yuan's chest. Blood splattered and Marquis Yuan retreated several steps. He looked forward in shock and anger. What's going on? Wasn't this brat's cultivation crippled? How could he be so fast with just his physical strength? Marquis Yuan's expression turned serious, and he swung the demonic saber once more. However, Marquis Yuan dodged the saber once more. Bang! The heavy fist struck out, and the fist energy penetrated his body. Marquis Yuan vomited blood and staggered back. He finally understood the reason. It wasn't that Ningchen was too fast, but that he was too slow. Just now, when his saber approached Ningchen, its speed had clearly slowed down. It was like the flow of time was messed up. Did you notice? Unfortunately, it's too late. While speaking, Ningchen appeared before Marquis Yuan and punched out, increasing his advantage. Marquis Yuan took a few steps back and coughed violently. He couldn't hold on for long. His former bravery and skill in battle had long been obliterated by the passage of time. Marquis Yuan clutched his chest. His body that had half a foot in the yellow soil felt the aura of death more and more clearly. Why? Knowing that the situation wasn't good, Marquis Yuan raised the demonic aura in his body to stall for time. Seeing through Marquis Yuan's stalling tactic, Ningchen didn't pay attention to it. His figure flashed past and he punched and slashed with his saber. Marquis Yuan swung his saber to meet the attack. However, he was restricted and his attacks slowed down. Arg! Marquis Yuan retreated. But before he could stop, Marquis Yuan's figure flashed past and appeared behind Marquis Yuan. Boom! Above the 9 heavens, lightning tore through the sky and illuminated the dark night. Berserk bone pierced through his heart and blood flowed out continuously. Marquis Qingyuan looked at the black blade in his heart, and the brilliance in his eyes gradually dimmed. Why? Marquis Qingyuan looked back and asked weakly. Because I'm a human and you're a demon. Ningchen slowly pulled out the black blade, bringing out a waterfall of blood. Ningchen waved the blade to disperse the demonic blood on the blade. Looking at the king in front of him, he said lightly, "Let me tell you one more thing. Your death is only the beginning of the chaos of the Sky Devil Imperial family. If you are not in a hurry, you can wait on the road to the underworld." You. Marquis Qingyuan was furious. Blood spurted out from his wound. In the next instant, Marquis Qingyuan's body fell down. His eyes were wide open and he died with grievances. Boom. Rain poured down from the 9 heavens. Ningchen waved his hand and scattered the divine restriction. In Marquis Qingyuan's manner, the rain washed over the ground. In the 13th prince's manner, Ningchen walked over. The rain soaked his clothes and washed away the killing intent of the sinner. Your Highness. In the front hall, Shiyu and Shiqing, who had been waiting patiently, were shocked when they saw the figure in the rain. They immediately took an oil paper umbrella and greeted him. The umbrella blocked the rain, but couldn't block the pungent smell of blood. Ningchen looked at the 2 women outside the umbrella, and said with a gentle smile, "Didn't I tell you not to wait?" Shiyu and Shiqing were shocked when they smelled the smell of blood. What did His Highness go out to do? Let's go into the hall to avoid the rain. Ningchen softly spoke before the 2 of them could reply. Immediately, he strode towards the large hall in front of him. Inside the hall, the candlelight was so bright. Shiyu and Shiqing quickly walked to the back of the hall, and took new clothes to help Ningchen change out of his soaked clothes. Okay, you 2 can go and change. You just went out and your clothes are quite wet, Ningchen said with a smile. Shiyu and Shiqing looked at each other, bowed and left. Boom. Outside the hall, lightning cut through the dark night. Under the lightning, the eyes looking into the distance stopped smiling, and became extremely cold. Internal and external troubles from now on, the real start. Chapter 11-17. In the 3 royal city, the rain fell for an entire night. When the sun rose in the east, the rain gradually stopped. In the Marquis Qingyuan manor, the ground was filled with corpses. A few women and girls who were knocked unconscious woke up. Their eyes were filled with confusion at first, but a moment later, they were frightened by the scene in front of them. In the next moment, mournful screams resounded throughout the manor. It was so sorrowful that it made one shudder. Not long later, groups of imperial army soldiers ran over. The leader was wearing heavy armor, and had an extraordinary aura. It was the imperial army's grand commander, Xianmo, pushing open the manor. Xianmo's eyes were filled with blood. She couldn't believe the scene before her eyes. In just one night, the entire Marquis Qingyuan manor was slaughtered. Only a few women and maids survived. It was truly unbelievable. Grand Commander, they are all blade wounds. There should only be one culprit. A few Imperial Army soldiers came back to report after checking the corpses. Xianmo's expression froze. There was only one culprit? How was that possible? Let's go in and take a look. Xianmo spoke before she walked towards the back of the Marquis' mansion. The deepest part of the manor was a mess after the battle. The kings who died in battle had their eyes wide open. Xianmo squatted down and checked the injuries on Marquis Qingyuan's body. She frowned. There was only one culprit. But in the royal city, there were only a handful of people who could slaughter the entire Marquis Qingyuan manor. According to her knowledge, there was no reason for them to do such a thing. Furthermore, although Marquis Qingyuan was old, he still had the strength of a king. He shouldn't be so weak. Even if Marquis Qingyuan couldn't defeat the culprit, he should be able to escape or ask for help. After pondering for a long time, Xianmo stood up and looked at the Imperial Army soldiers behind her. Seal the entire Marquis Qingyuan manor. No one is allowed to enter. Yes. At the back, the Imperial Army soldiers received the order and quickly left. At the same time, a secret report came from the Crown Prince and Third Crown Prince's manors. After Xianzhen and Xianqing saw it, their faces changed. Marquis Qingyuan manor was destroyed. How did this happen? Brother, what happened? In the Crown Prince's residence, the fifth prince asked in confusion. Something happened at Marquis Qingyuan Fu. Xian Zhen handed over the secret report and said in a deep voice, "Immediately send someone to investigate who did this." The fifth prince took the secret report and glanced at it. His expression immediately changed. He did not say anything unnecessary and immediately walked out of the hall. In the third crown prince's palace, Xian Qing handed over the secret report in his hand and asked, "What do you think?" Sixth Prince Xian Yu took the secret report and read the contents. He said seriously, "Right now we still can't tell who did it. There are many experts who use the blade in the imperial city, but the number of people who can massacre Marquis Qingyuan's household in one night without anyone knowing can be counted on one's fingers. Go back to eldest imperial brother's side and sound him out. Something happened to Marquis Qingyuan Fu. Presumably, the one with the most heartache is that eldest imperial brother of ours." Xian Qing sneered. Xian Yu nodded and said, "Third imperial brother, you have to be careful these days. If something happens in Marquis Qingyuan's residence, eldest imperial brother's first suspect will definitely be you." "I understand." Xian Qing nodded. Now that the situation in the imperial city was getting more and more tense, and Marquis Qingyuan Fu had encountered a great calamity, everyone's attention would definitely be on the third crown prince's palace. Presumably, the two demon emperors also knew about this matter. Since imperial father wasn't here at this time, it was really troublesome. Xian Yu left the palace. Xian Qing stood quietly in the imperial palace with a serious expression. Imperial father was just trapped in the easternmost land. And such a big thing happened in third imperial city. Was it really a coincidence? In the ninth prince's palace, not long after the secret report was sent back, Xian Ke left the palace and headed straight for 13th prince's palace. In third imperial city, the news of Marquis Qingyuan Fu's destruction spread quickly. Everyone was shocked, and dark clouds covered the entire imperial city, making it hard for people to breathe. In 13th prince's palace, Ning Chun, who single-handedly caused this situation, sat quietly in the imperial palace and drank tea. His expression was calm, and there were no ripples. "Your Highness, the ninth prince requests an audience." A guard quickly walked over and said respectfully, "Invite him in." Ning Chun put down the tea in his hand and said, "Yes." The guard accepted the order and turned to leave. Soon, the ninth prince entered the palace and walked towards the imperial palace. Ning Chun stood up and walked to the front of the palace to welcome him. "Ninth imperial brother. 13th imperial brother, something happened." Xian Ke walked forward and said with a serious expression, "Have you received the news?" "What happened?" Ning Chun said indifferently. "Last night, everyone in Marquis Qingyuan Fu was massacred. Even Marquis Qingyuan was not spared. Now the imperial army has sealed off Marquis Qingyuan Fu, and no one is allowed to enter or leave. When I came, the entire imperial city was filled with imperial army figures. I think the imperial city is now under martial law." Xian Ke said seriously. "Marquis Qingyuan?" Ning Chun frowned and said, "Isn't that from First Imperial Brothers faction? Could it be Third Imperial Brothers doing?" Xian Ke's expression changed slightly when he heard this, and he softly reprimanded, 13th Imperial Brother, don't talk nonsense. This is a serious crime. You can't say it casually." Ning Chun smiled and said, "I understand. I only dare to say this when there's only 9th Imperial Brother and I. I will be careful in front of outsiders." Xian Ke nodded and said, "Actually, what you said just now is the guess of the majority of people. Third Imperial Brother is indeed the biggest suspect in the destruction of Marquis Qingyuan Fu. However, nothing is absolute. It's possible that someone deliberately framed Third Imperial Brother to do such an inhumane thing. If that's the case, then the person who did it is really sinister." Ning Chun smiled. Xian Ke sighed and said, "No one knows the truth. I came here to inform 13th Imperial Brother. At this time, you must be careful. The matter of Marquis Qingyuan Fu will definitely cause a huge commotion. If you're splashed with dirty water at this time, there will be endless troubles." 9th Imperial Brother too, Ning Chun said seriously. "You must be careful." Xian Ke nodded and said, I still have to go back and deal with Marquis Qingyuan's matter. I won't stay any longer, and will take my leave first. Imperial brother, please. Ningchen replied. 13th Imperial brother, please wait. Xian Ke spoke, and then he walked out of the estate with large strides. Ningchen looked at the former's departing figure, and the smile on his face gradually faded. He turned and returned to the hall. In the hall, Shiyu heard the conversation between the two and thought of His Highness's bloody aura when he came back last night. Waves surged in her heart. Don't make wild guesses. Ningchen reprimanded with a smile and said, the tea is a bit cold. Go warm it up. Yes. Shiyu respectfully accepted the order and walked forward to carry the tea out. Outside the hall, Shiqing looked at Shiyu, who walked out, and whispered, Sister, was His Highness the one who did what in Marquis Qingyuan Fu? Don't talk nonsense. Shiyu's face sank and reprimanded. Nothing happened yesterday. His Highness also didn't leave the Fu. Shiqing was shocked when she heard the reprimand. She immediately nodded and didn't dare to say anything more. Inside the hall, Ningchen looked at the scene outside and smiled faintly. He didn't care. In the Imperial City, from dawn to sunset, the Imperial Guards came and went, searching for the murderer's whereabouts. The tense atmosphere pervaded the entire Imperial City. From the nobles to the common people, everyone was anxious. In the west, the sun set and the sky gradually darkened. The Imperial Guards also began to change shifts. In the main hall of the 13th Prince's residence, Ningchen sat quietly for a day, waiting for the sun to set. In the residence, the lights were lit. When the sky was completely dark, Ningchen got up and walked out of the residence. Shiyu and Shiqing were shocked when they saw this. His Highness was going out of the residence? Your Highness. Shiqing couldn't help but call out. Ningchen stopped and turned back to look at the two worried women in front of the hall. He smiled and said, just a small matter. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. After that, Ningchen didn't say anything else and stepped out of the residence. In the Imperial City, a figure in plain clothes flashed by. Her speed was extremely fast. In an instant, she was 100 miles away. In the northern True Prince's residence, plain clothes swept over, holding a knife, and began to kill. Blood splashed out. The guards in front of the prince's residence didn't even see the appearance of the person who came, and their bodies fell weakly. After a few breaths, in the prince's residence, a knife light flashed across the night sky. The King of Hell mercilessly took lives. Boom. Not long after, the main hall in the prince's residence collapsed. The figure in plain clothes walked out and left with a knife. My lord. In the prince's residence, a desolate cry resounded through the night sky. In the Imperial City, the Imperial Army heard the commotion and immediately rushed to the northern True Prince's residence. On the other side of the Imperial City, Xian Mo received the report and quickly rushed over. In the northern True Prince's residence, blood flowed everywhere. The same scene as in the Marquis Qingyuan's residence appeared before everyone's eyes. The prince's residence collapsed and the king died. The knife wound that penetrated his chest destroyed his vitality. Xian Mo looked at the scene in front of her, and her face became more and more solemn. Who was this person, and what was his purpose? Although Marquis Qingyuan and Marquis Beijing weren't peak experts in the king realm, they weren't people who could be easily bullied. Now they were killed without anyone knowing. They didn't even have the chance to ask for help. Could it be that a Peak King Realm expert made a move? However, there weren't many Peak King Realm experts in the entire Primordial Demon region. And they weren't in the 3 Imperial cities. If they had entered the city, he shouldn't have not noticed at all. Thinking of this, Xian Mo sighed softly. The 3 Imperial cities would probably be in chaos soon. In the main hall of the Crown Prince's residence, Xian Zhen's face changed when he heard the report. Something had happened to Marquis Beijing? Almost at the same time, in the 3rd Prince's residence, the news of Marquis Beijing's assassination came. Xianqing's face changed when he heard it. It was the Crown Prince's people again. This was troublesome. He wasn't sure before, but this time, he was sure that someone was deliberately framing him. In the 13th Prince's residence, Ningchen stood quietly in front of the main hall. Looking at the chaos in the Imperial City, his eyes became colder and colder. He wanted to see how long the crown prince could sit still. Even if he could sit still, his supporters wouldn't be able to remain calm. No one hoped that the knife would fall on their heads next time. If the crown prince didn't make a move, the hearts of the nobles would soon disperse. However, if the crown prince made a move, the knife would definitely fall on the third prince's side. In this way, the battle between the two princes would become white-hot. Chapter 11:18. Under the night sky, the imperial army rushed to and fro, surrounding the entire northern True King's mansion. After Marquis Qingyuan Fu, northern True Wang Fu was also exterminated. Almost no one was left alive. The ninth prince Xian Ke rushed over. When he saw the state of the mansion, his expression turned grave. Trouble. Marquis Qingyuan and Beijing mansion were killed one after another. The crown prince couldn't be indifferent anymore. This time, there would be a big reshuffle in the imperial city. Ninth prince, should we report this to the two demon kings? Xianmo asked as she looked at the ninth prince. Yes. Xian Ke nodded and said, we must. Two nobles from the king's domain are in trouble. It's not something we can handle. The crown prince has arrived. At this moment, a sharp voice sounded outside the Beijing mansion. Soon, the crown prince of the Sky Devil royal family walked out from the imperial army. Greetings, crown prince. Greetings, first brother. Xianmo and Xian Ke bowed when they saw him. Xianjun nodded and walked to them. He looked at the scene in the mansion with a cold expression. The destruction of the mansion was a blatant provocation. He couldn't take it anymore. The third prince has arrived. At this moment, outside the prince's mansion, the sound of a messenger rang out again. The third prince, dressed in white, appeared before everyone's eyes. He was extraordinarily handsome. The first crown prince and the third crown prince arrived at the same time. The palace suddenly became abnormally quiet. The heavy atmosphere made everyone present nervous. First brother. Xianqing looked at the person in front of him and said politely. Xianjun looked back and said calmly, third brother, you're here too. Yes. Xianqing nodded and said, I heard that something happened to Beijing mansion. I was worried, so I came to take a look. Like Marquis Qingyuan, it was done by a sword expert. We can't find out who did it yet. Xianjun replied calmly. There was no anger on his face. Xianqing went forward and looked at the wound on Beijing mansion's chest. He looked serious and said, it was indeed done by an expert. There aren't many king's domain cultivators who can do this. Judging from the extent of the damage done to the mansion, King Northern True didn't even have time to resist before he was killed. Based on this, we can infer that the murderer's strength is far beyond King Northern True's. There are only a few such experts in the entire primordial demon domain. As long as we investigate carefully, I think we will find something, Xianjun said lightly. Imperial brother is right. Xianqing nodded and said with a smile. However, the primeval demon realm is vast. There are bound to be masters we don't know about. Moreover, even in the demon realm, there are some masters of the king realm who are not under the control of our royal family. It won't be easy to investigate them. Although the conversation seemed calm, there was a sharp edge to it. Everyone present became more and more nervous, afraid that the two crown princes would fall out on the spot. However, everyone's worries did not come true. After Xianqing personally examined King Beijing's wound, he smiled and looked at the great prince and the two people behind him. He said, Ninth brother and Commander Xianmo still have duties to attend to. I will not disturb you here. Great brother, I will leave first. Please. Xuanjun said calmly. Xianqing nodded and walked out of the mansion. After the third crown prince left, the ninth prince and Xianmo heaved a sigh of relief. Just now, they were afraid that the two crown princes would fall out on the spot. Investigate the case carefully. Don't worry about anything. Understand? Xianjun looked back at the two people behind him and said lightly. Yes. The ninth prince and Xianmo accepted the order respectfully. After taking one last look at the ruined mansion, Xianjun turned and left. His expression was cold, making people shudder. Xian Ke looked at the great prince's back and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The great brother's words clearly implied something. It seemed that the great brother was certain that the third brother was involved in this matter. In the 13th Crown Prince's mansion, under the night sky, a white-clothed figure danced with a sword under the moonlight. The cold sword light intertwined with each other. It was breathtaking and bone-chilling. 100 years of practicing the sword, understanding the sword theory, listening to the sword breath. There was a sword on the sword. There was no end to it. The situation in the imperial city changed. All the forces were nervous. Only the 13th Crown Prince's mansion was unusually calm. It was not affected by the outside world at all. Under the moonlight, the sword technique ended. A curved sword light appeared, cutting through the void and splitting the night sky. Clang. After the final move, the divine weapon was sheathed. Ningchen looked at the northern True Mansion in the distance. His calm eyes flashed with cold light. The turmoil had only just begun. Next, he would make the waters of the imperial city more and more muddy until everyone was dragged into it. Only when the heavenly demonic imperial family was in chaos would the other 5 imperial families have a chance to win. In the northern continent, at the center of the thousands of altars, Go Huang looked at the demonic area in the distance. The demonic area's fate was gradually changing. The 13th prince was not lying. It seemed that the time for the sorcerer tribe to send out their troops was getting closer. At the same time, the western sacred region, the divine capital mountain, and the stone tribe all looked at the primordial demonic area with ripples in their eyes. In the third imperial city, the night sky gradually disappeared and the sun shone on the earth. Xianemo walked out of the northern True Mansion and headed straight for the heavenly demonic ancestral land. The Marquis Qingyuan Mansion and the northern True Mansion had been destroyed one after another. It was no longer something they could handle. They had to report it to the 2 demon emperors. The heavenly demonic ancestral land was surrounded by demonic qi. Xianemo walked over and half-knelt in front of the forbidden land. She said, "Greetings, demon emperors." Xianemo at this moment, a majestic voice sounded. "Why have you come? Demon emperors, the Marquis Qingyuan Mansion and the northern True Mansion have been destroyed in the past 2 days. The murderer is a saber expert. His identity has not been found yet. I think it is necessary to inform you, demon emperors," Xianemo said respectfully. "Oh." Another majestic voice sounded in the depths of the ancestral land. "Stand up and report." "Thank you, demon emperors." Xianemo stood up and stood there quietly. There should be no saber expert in the third imperial city who could kill the Marquis Qingyuan Mansion and the northern True Mansion. Have any other experts entered the city these days? The 7 luminaries demon emperor asked in the void. No. Xianemo shook her head and said, "My duty is to guard the imperial city. I would have sensed it if such an expert had come." "Maybe you didn't sense it," the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor replied. "It's not strange that you didn't sense it if the intruder has an imperial weapon or an artifact of the same level to conceal his presence." "An imperial weapon?" Xianemo frowned and said, "There are only a handful of tribes in the primordial demon realm that possess an imperial weapon. They shouldn't have the guts to do it. It's a troubled time. The tribes are getting restless. It's not impossible for them to take the risk," the 7 luminaries demon emperor replied. "Go back and increase the search with the Forbidden Army, especially the southwest of the imperial city. It's easy for the tribes to hide there. We need to search carefully." "Yes, I'll take my leave." Xianemo bowed respectfully and left. After Xianemo left, the demonic qi in the ancestral land gathered and concealed all presence. Xianemo walked out of the ancestral land with a serious expression. The 7 luminaries demon emperor's words were obviously hinting at something. It was true that the tribes were gathered in the southwest of the imperial city, but the third prince's residence was located there. Xianemo returned from the third prince's palace. She immediately dispatched a large number of forbidden army to the southwest of the imperial city. Xianqing's expression darkened when he received the report in the third prince's palace. Xianemo had dispatched a large number of forbidden army here. Was it the 2 demon emperors' idea? It was troublesome that his father was not in the ancestral land at the moment. Groups of forbidden army arrived outside the third prince's palace, but they patrolled from afar. Soon Xianemo arrived. She glanced at the third prince's palace and said calmly, "From today onward, increase the search. Don't let your guard down." "Yes." In the rear, the imperial army generals replied, their hearts in turmoil. By doing this, they were essentially monitoring the third prince's residence. Inside the third prince's palace, Xianyu glanced at the forbidden army outside and said sternly, "Brother, it seems like the two demon emperors are starting to suspect you." "It's inevitable." Xianqing nodded and said, "Marquis Qingyuan and Lord Beijing are both from the first prince's side. Not only the two demon emperors, but everyone in the third prince's palace also believes that I did it. I can't escape suspicion." "But it's clearly not your doing, brother," Xianyu said. "Why don't you go to the ancestral land and explain to the two demon emperors?" "There's no need," Xianqing said calmly. "Unless the real culprit is found, I will definitely be blamed for this. No matter how much I explain, it will be a waste of energy." The truth was not important in the current situation. Everyone believed that he was the one who killed Marquis Qingyuan and Lord Beijing. If it were not for their extraordinary status, he would even suspect that the first prince had framed him. "Brother, is there a way to solve this situation?" Xianyu asked. Xianqing looked outside and thought for a long time. Then he said, "I need to invite someone." "Oh?" Xianyu asked. 13th brother," Xianqing said slowly. "It's not important whether this situation can be solved or not. What's important is how we can fight for the overall situation. We've tried so many times to rope in the 13th prince but failed. Now that the situation is not good for you, will he choose to support you?" Xianyu asked worriedly. "Whether he will or not depends on our sincerity," Xianqing said calmly. "A few days ago, 13th brother asked me to help him get rid of someone. I didn't say anything at that time. Now we have to make a decision as soon as possible." In the 13th prince's palace, Ningchen sat in the main hall and drank tea quietly for half a day. Beside him, Shiyu and Shiqing looked at each other helplessly. They could almost guess how chaotic the situation was outside, but His Highness was still in the mood to drink tea. "Your Highness." At this moment, a guard quickly walked in and bowed respectfully. "Someone from the third prince's palace has come to invite your Highness to be a guest." "I know. You can leave now." Ningchen put down the teacup in his hand and said indifferently, "Yes." The guard accepted the order and left. "I'm going out for a while. I'll be back before sunset." Ningchen stood up and looked at the two women beside him. He smiled and said, "Send some tea to the 9th Underworld King's palace. Tell them that I asked you to send it." Chapter 11:19. In the southwest of the Third Imperial City, not far from the Third Crown Prince's palace, the Imperial Army came and went. Although they didn't get too close, they kept monitoring the situation in the Third Crown Prince's palace. In the Third Crown Prince's palace, Bai Yi and Sui sat facing each other, discussing countermeasures. 13th brother, you must have seen it when you came. Now the Imperial Army has surrounded this place. Commander Xian Emo wouldn't have dared to do this without the permission of the two demon emperors. I didn't expect that even the two demon emperors would think that I killed Marquis Qingyuan and Lord Beijing. This time I really can't explain myself. Xianqing smiled bitterly. "So was it you who did this?" Ningchen looked at the person in front of him and asked seriously. "No." Xianqing shook his head seriously and said, "I'm not stupid enough to put myself in such a passive situation. Even if I wanted to get rid of these two people, I would have used other methods instead of such an extreme method." Ningchen nodded. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, "The current situation is indeed somewhat disadvantageous for Royal Brother. Although the first prince has lost two capable generals, Royal Brother has been pushed to the heart of the struggle. If you are the slightest bit careless, you will lose everything." "I understand," Xianqing said seriously, "so I need your help, 13th brother." "Me?" Ningchen frowned and said, "You should know that I can't even protect myself now. After Xian Luo came to the Imperial City, I had to be careful at all times. After all, it's difficult for me to deal with a master in the middle stage, or even the late stage of the King realm." I may have a way to get rid of this person, Xianqing said seriously. Oh. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, do you have a way, or are you willing to lend me your troops? Neither. Xianqing shook his head and said, 13th brother, have you heard of a kind of spell called the incantation technique? I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it, Ningchen said seriously. Tens of thousands of years ago, there was a great clan in the primordial demon realm that was famous for their spells. They were called Qi Huang, and because they were skilled in all kinds of strange spells, they flourished for a time. Legend has it that anyone who was cursed by the Qi Huang clan would not be able to escape the fate of death even if they were tens of thousands of miles away. Later on, the Qi Huang clan was annihilated by the joint forces of several great imperial clans because of their unjust deeds. Before the Qi Huang clan's grand elder passed away, he used his own life essence to inscribe the last 3 talismans of the curse. They are called the Heaven, Earth and Human talismans. Among them, the strongest Heaven talisman and Earth talisman have long since gone missing. As for the Human talisman, it has been passed around a few times and has now fallen into my hands. While speaking, Xianqing took out a wooden box. In the wooden box, there was a green jade talisman lying quietly on a yellow silk cloth. A strange aura was circulating around it. It was very extraordinary. This is the Human talisman, Xianqing said seriously. Although the Human talisman is not as powerful as the Heavenly talisman and the Earthly talisman, it still has incredible power. According to my estimation, the power contained in this Human talisman is enough to kill an expert who has just entered the King realm without being aware of it. As long as Xian Luo's cultivation has not exceeded the King realm late stage, this Human talisman will definitely seriously injure him, even if it can't kill him. With your strength, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to kill a seriously injured expert in the King realm. Now that your whereabouts are being monitored all the time, I can only help you to this extent. Ningchen looked at the talisman in the wooden box and thought quietly for a long time. Then he put the talisman away and said, thank you, third brother. Seeing that Ningchen had accepted the Human talisman, Xianqing was secretly relieved. Now that Ningchen was willing to accept his kindness, it would be easier to deal with the rest. When 13th brother left the demon region, did you encounter some assassins in black? Xianqing asked seriously. Yes. Ningchen nodded and said honestly, no less than 10 times. Have you ever thought about who sent these people? Xianqing asked. I have some guesses, but I don't have any evidence. Ningchen looked at the crown prince's mansion in the northwest and said, in the whole imperial city, only that person deliberately wants to kill me. 13th brother, I know you don't want to be involved in the fight for the throne between me and my brother. But you have seen the situation now. You and I are both people that my brother wants to kill at all costs. If we don't join hands, he will defeat us one by one soon. Xianqing didn't beat around the bush and said directly, 13th brother, I need your help. Ningchen was silent for a moment and said, what do you need me to do? Hearing this, Xianqing's eyes flashed with joy. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, it's very simple. You just need to stand out and say something for me. You don't need to do anything else. Okay. Ningchen nodded and said seriously, since Royal Brother has been wronged, it's not a big deal for Royal Brother to speak up for Royal Brother. In addition, I will find a way to tell Commander Xian Mo about Royal Brother's injustice. I hope Commander Xian Mo will stop monitoring Royal Brother's whereabouts. Hearing this, Xianqing stood up, cupped his fists and bowed, saying, 13th brother, I thank you first. Seeing this, Ningchen also stood up and supported the person in front of him. He said softly, don't be so polite, brother. This is what I should do. After saying what needed to be said, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. After saying goodbye, he left the third crown prince's mansion. Outside, the sun was setting. A day was about to pass. Ningchen glanced at the imperial army patrolling not far from the crown prince's mansion. He smiled faintly and walked away. At the 13th crown prince's mansion, Ningchen returned at sunset. In the mansion, Shiyu and Shiqing had already returned and were waiting quietly. Have you sent the tea? Ningchen walked into the hall and asked. Yes, Shiyu said softly. What did master say? Ningchen picked up the tea on the table, took a sip and said calmly, "The demon emperor told your highness to be careful with your words and actions. You're not afraid of trouble, but you shouldn't cause trouble," Shiyu said. Hearing this, Ningchen smiled. His master really knew him. He knew that he was going to cause trouble again. "Tomorrow send another type of tea over," Ningchen instructed. "Yes," Shiyu said respectfully. "You can leave first," Ningchen said. "Yes." Shiyu responded and walked out of the hall together with Shiqing. After leaving the hall, Shiqing finally couldn't suppress the doubts in her heart. She asked softly, "Sister, the demon emperor of the underworld doesn't seem to like drinking tea. Why did your highness send tea?" "Your highness isn't sending tea. He's asking a question," Shiyu said softly. Shiqing was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Shiyu looked back at the white-clothed figure in the hall and said, "Your highness should be asking the demon emperor about something." "I don't understand." Shiqing shook her head. "It's so troublesome. Why doesn't your highness just go and ask?" "I don't really understand either." Shiyu sighed. "Maybe he can't go." "Well, these things shouldn't be known to us. Just do what your highness has asked us to do." "Oh." Shiqing nodded as if she didn't fully understand and responded softly. In the hall, Ningchen sat quietly, drinking cup after cup of tea. Thoughts flashed through his eyes. So far, there were two urgent matters that had to be resolved as soon as possible. The first matter was the trouble of Xianluo. Xianluo knew his identity. Although he was afraid of his master and didn't dare to come out and tell the truth, he was still an uneasy factor. Once Xianluo sensed danger, he might choose to reveal everything and destroy everything. If that day came, even his master couldn't protect him. Although the war between the heavens beyond and the primordial demon realm hadn't broken out yet, since the three demon emperors had decided to fight between the two realms, they wouldn't let him leave alive. As for the second matter, it was to stir up internal strife in the heavenly demon imperial family as soon as possible. Compared to the first matter, it was actually more difficult. The matter of stirring up internal strife in the heavenly demon imperial family must be kept from his master. After all, his master was the emperor of the heavenly demon clan. He wouldn't allow him to do as he pleased. In these 2 days he didn't dare to go to the 9th Serenity King's mansion, because he was afraid that his master would detect the bloody smell on him. The strength of an emperor supreme was beyond measure. He had to be careful. Outside the hall, night fell. Ningchen got up and walked out of the hall. At this time, Shiyu came in with a cup of hot tea. When she saw that his highness was about to go out again, her expression changed. "Don't think too much. I'm just going out for a walk today and have a drink with someone." Ningchen saw through the thoughts of the girl in front of him. He smiled softly and walked out of the mansion. On the streets of the imperial city, the imperial guards were running. The whole city was under martial law. Now that 2 members of the imperial family were in trouble, everyone in the imperial city was in danger. They were afraid that they would be next. Ningchen walked quietly on the street. His expression was calm and indifferent. He wasn't affected by the tense atmosphere in the imperial city at all. In the southeastern part of the imperial city, in an inconspicuous little courtyard, the lights were on. A beautiful woman was busily preparing dinner for her husband who had just returned. After taking off her heavy armor, Xianmo's face was less serious and more peaceful. She sat at the table and ate. The feeling of home was always in the simplest dish of vegetables and a bowl of rice. It made people linger. "Sit down and eat. You can clean up after you eat." Seeing that the woman was still busy, Xianmo said. Hearing this, the woman smiled gently and said, "Okay. You've worked hard these 2 days." Xianmo looked at his wife sitting opposite him and said softly, "You're busy outside. Naturally, I have to take care of the things at home." The woman smiled and said, "You must be exhausted these 2 days." "Yes." Facing his wife, Xianmo didn't deliberately hide anything. She reminded her, something happened in the imperial city. Now it's under martial law. If there's nothing important, don't go out these days. "Okay." The woman didn't ask more and nodded. Outside the small courtyard, a figure in plain clothes stood quietly. Looking at the warm scene in the courtyard, she didn't go in to disturb. Demons were emotionless by nature, But there were exceptions. His master and Xianemo in front of him were both emotionless people. This was one of the few warmth he could see in the cold imperial family of celestial demons. He didn't know how long this scattered warmth could last. Although he didn't want to one day in the future, he might destroy everything in front of him with his own hands. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.